Hey guys, tonight we climb aboard a creaking medieval ship, smack in the middle of a stormy sea and try to do something that might be more difficult than surviving a sword fight, getting a decent night's sleep. You probably won't survive this, to be honest. Medieval ships weren't built for comfort, they were barely built for buoyancy. And tonight, you'll see exactly what that means when thunder is cracking, waves are smashing against the hull, and your bedding smells like something the dog dragged in, then dragged back out because even the dog couldn't stand it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and what time it is where you are. I love seeing who else can't sleep. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is 1328. You're a lowly sailor aboard a cog, basically a chunky wooden bathtub with sails. You didn't join for the adventure. You joined because you were poor, probably hungry, and someone said you'd get 3 meals a day. They didn't say anything about sleep, though. The storm rolled in a few hours ago, and you haven't dried off since. You're below deck now, water dripping off your hood, knees aching from slipping across the slick board's topside. Every inch of your body hums with fatigue, but the ship has other plans. The captain shouts above deck. The sails rigging is flapping too loudly for you to make out the words, but it's urgent. You're off duty now, though, and the storm is bad enough that half the crew has already disappeared below, trying to steal an hour or two of rest before the next watch. Your shift ended 15 minutes ago, which means, if you're lucky, you've got maybe 3 hours before someone yells for you again. The stairwell to the lower hold is more of a ladder, slick with seawater and grime. You grip it with hands that feel more like soaked leather than skin. The moment you descend, a wall of scent slams into you. Mould, unwashed feet, fish oil, stale air, and something sweet that's probably rotting fruit. Or something pretending to be fruit. There's almost no light here, just the dim flicker of a lantern swinging in slow, swaying arcs. You crouch to avoid cracking your skull on a low beam. The space is barely tall enough for anyone to stand, which is fine because no one's standing. Bodies are crammed into every available gap, lying on their sides, curled in corners, arms folded across chests like corpses awaiting burial. Some snore, others mutter in their sleep, murmuring names or curses. You step over someone's boots, someone's head, someone's possibly living rat companion, and find your usual spot, a plank of wood barely wider than your shoulders and damp from an unknown source. As you lower yourself down, you feel the ship lurch, not gently, like a slap from Poseidon himself. Your shoulder smacks against the wall. Above, something heavy crashes. Probably a barrel, hopefully not a crewmate. No one reacts much. A few grumbles, a cough. Someone says, "There goes the cheese," and the rest go back to pretending to sleep. This is your bed for the night, a slanted piece of timber nestled beside 2 other sailors. There's no mattress, no pillow. If you're lucky, you can wad up your cloak and use it as padding, but it's soaked through. Everything's soaked through. Even your bones feel damp. You lie back and let the rocking of the ship do its worst. At first, it's oddly soothing, like being rocked in a cradle, until the cradle tips 40 degrees and your stomach decides to file a protest. Your back slams against the hull as the ship rolls starboard, and a second later, your foot slips off your plank as you roll the other way. You're sandwiched between a barrel of salt pork and a guy named Alain, who smells like he hasn't blinked since the last plague. A rat scurries across a beam overhead. It pauses, then vanishes into the dark. You're not even startled. At this point, it's just another roommate. Now you close your eyes, not to sleep, yet, but to brace yourself. You count your breaths. You try to ignore the sound of the storm, the drips landing on your chest, the wet hair stuck to your forehead. You try to find stillness inside the chaos. And here's the historical kicker. This was normal. In fact, the idea of a bed for a sailor was a luxury most never dreamed of. Officers sometimes got bunks. The captain might have a private cabin with a lumpy straw mattress. You get a corner of the hull and whatever warmth your neighbour's body radiates. There's some debate among historians about how exactly sailors organised sleep during long voyages, whether rotations were strict, or whether you just collapsed whenever you could. Some logs suggest a tight system of 4-hour shifts. Others hint that during storms, schedules fell apart entirely and you simply slept when the sea let you. Of course, no one talks about what happened when the sea didn't let you, when the storm just kept going, when you were so tired your teeth hurt. but the idea of closing your eyes felt like asking to drown in your dreams. Tonight's one of those nights. The storm groans against the hull like it wants in. You hear the rope strain overhead. You imagine what it would feel like to be tossed overboard. Cold water, heavy boots, a sudden yank downward. The fear isn't loud, it's just a quiet thought sitting in the back of your mind, sipping something bitter. You breathe in again. The air smells like mildew and sweat. Your neighbour mumbles something in his sleep and rolls toward you. His elbow hits your ribs. You're too tired to push him back. Instead, you close your eyes again and think of bread. Warm, crusty, buttered. Land food. A place with grass and a bed. Maybe a cat. And despite everything, the storm, the stench, the rats, the snoring, you start to drift. Not into true sleep, but into that warm, heavy pre-sleep fog where the sea doesn't feel quite so close, and your body starts to forget it's miserable. Then someone above yells, "All hands!" And just like that, it's over. You scramble upright, ribs aching from where your neighbour rolled into you. The command still echoes down from above, "All hands!" A phrase that might as well mean, forget whatever warmth you just imagined, it's back to the cold and chaos now. You half stand, half crawl over a mess of limbs and bundles of gear. Someone swears under their breath as your knee lands squarely on their shoulder. You don't apologise. Nobody does. There's no time for courtesy when the deck is calling and the sea is in a bad mood. The ladder is even more treacherous now, slick as a fish belly. You climb fast, shoulders hunched, heart already picking up speed, and emerge back into the gale. Rain greets you like an insult. Sharp, cold, driving sideways across your face. The sail above cracks like a whip. The ship tilts, groaning beneath your boots, and you see a blur of shadows moving like ants across the deck, everyone hustling to secure the lines before something breaks for good. Your job tonight isn't glamorous. You're hauling ropes, pulling canvas, keeping your footing while wind shoves at you like a drunk in a tavern. You curse under your breath as salt water splashes into your eyes, stings your already raw hands, fills your boots again. You just started to forget how cold your toes were. After what feels like an hour, but is probably 20 minutes, the storm settles a notch. Not quiet, exactly, but no longer the shrieking fury it was. The captain, perched like a gargoyle near the tiller, doesn't call out again. That means you're off duty once more, for now. You wait a moment, just to be sure, then stagger back below deck, soaked again, body vibrating with exhaustion. This time you don't even hesitate. You head straight for your spot, curl into it, clothes dripping, hair clinging to your cheeks. There's no blanket, no towel. You make do. That's the theme here. You make do. Now that the storm's anger has mellowed into a steady tantrum, you notice more about your sleeping quarters, or what passes for them. This ship, like most medieval cogs, has only one enclosed deck under the main planks above. It's where everything happens: eating, sleeping, storing cargo, arguing over who stole whose ration of dried peas. You and 30 other sailors share this space with barrels, crates, and a rotating cast of rodents. Some ships carried up to 50 or more, and space was never the priority. Keeping the vessel afloat was. The ceiling's low, you can't stand upright, and even when you lie flat, there's barely room between you and the next guy. Privacy isn't a concept here. Neither is comfort. What you're experiencing now is what most sailors simply called below. A damp, dark space that smells like everything and nothing clean. It's where you sleep, where you shiver, where you think about dry land and question your life choices. There are no hammocks on this ship. That's a bit of a surprise to some people. Hammocks, while eventually associated with sailors, didn't become standard until later, around the 16th century. In your current medieval life, your bed is a plank, a coil of rope, or the curve of the hull if you're lucky enough to claim a concave section. The wealthiest might stuff a straw mattress into a corner, but that straw quickly becomes mouldy, lice-ridden and soggy with seawater. So really, you're not missing much. Some ships experimented with suspended bunks, canvas slings, crude netting, but these were rare, and usually only installed on longer expeditions or for officers. For the average seaman like you, the options are wood or floor. Choose your misery. The guy next to you, Alain, is already snoring again. You envy him. It's a wet, sputtering snore that sounds like he's gargling seaweed, but somehow he's asleep. Maybe it's because his brain has learned to shut down completely during off hours. That's what sailors do eventually. Train their minds to ignore discomfort, to slip into unconsciousness with zero ceremony. You shift on your side, but the board beneath you presses into your hip like it's trying to merge with your skeleton. Every surface is unforgiving, and yet your body is so deeply tired that pain is starting to feel like reassurance. At least it means you're still alive. You let your eyes close. Outside, the storm growls on, but it's like a distant argument now. The worst is past. You hope. You've learned not to trust the sea. One moment it's whispering, the next it's dragging entire men overboard like a bored god swiping pieces off a chessboard. And now comes the real challenge. Sleeping while surrounded by 30 other exhausted, noisy, smelly men, all crammed into one tight, echoing space. It's not just the snoring, it's the sighing, the farting, the sleep-talking. It's the guy 3 feet away whispering a prayer to St. Elmo, patron of sailors. It's the way the hull groans like it has old bones. You start to drift again. You tell yourself to ignore the cold. You try not to think about the rat you saw earlier, or the way the water sometimes seeps in through the hull boards, just a trickle, but always present, always reminding you that this isn't a bedroom. It's a box of wood, floating on the mercy of wind and wave. And yet, this is how men crossed oceans. Not kings or knights. Men like you, nameless, sleep-deprived, salted like jerky from the sea air. They navigated storms, faced starvation, watched friends vanish overboard, all while getting maybe 4 hours of damp sleep at a time. And somehow, they did it again the next night. There's an ongoing debate among historians about just how strictly medieval ships followed sleeping shifts. Some argue that watch rotations were ironclad, with bells marking every 4 hours like clockwork. Others suggest that during storms or calm, the routines relaxed, or dissolved entirely into chaos. What's clear is that rest was scarce, and true sleep rarer still. Your muscles twitch. Your hands, still raw from rope burns, curl against your chest. You hear someone shout in their sleep, something in a language you don't recognize. It startles you, but you don't open your eyes. The ship rocks again, not violently, just enough to remind you where you are, and for a fleeting moment you almost feel weightless, as if you could forget the rain, the rot, the relentless ache in your shoulders. It doesn't last. Your neighbour rolls again, elbowing your side. You grunt, push back half-heartedly. He mutters an apology, or maybe a threat. Hard to tell. But this time, when you close your eyes, you fall deeper. Not into a dream, not yet. Just into the dark. The kind of dark you don't fight. The kind that swallows you, whole and heavy. And outside, the sea keeps moving. The first thing you notice when you wake, if you can call what just happened waking, is the smell. It hits you before you even open your eyes. A warm, fermented funk that clings to your nostrils like it's trying to move in permanently. You groan softly, roll onto your back, and instantly regret it. The damp wood beneath you feels colder now, somehow wetter, like it's been crying all night just for you. The hold is quieter than before, which is almost more unsettling. Some of the crew must be above deck again. The ones off shift remain sprawled around you in unnatural angles, limbs flopped over barrels and bundles of rope. A rat scuttles near your foot and you don't even flinch. That's how far gone you are. When something with tiny claws and twitchy whiskers brushes past your toes, and you just think, oh, morning I guess. You sit up slowly, neck stiff, lower back locked into a position that wasn't approved by any gods or chiropractors. You sniff the air. Why? You don't know. Maybe out of habit. Maybe out of masochism. It's worse than usual. That's saying something. Let's break it down. There's the sour, thick odour of unwashed bodies, strong enough to give your breath a second-hand hangover. Then there's the permanent perfume of bilge water, something between rotting fish and vinegar left in the sun. Add to that the hot, greasy smell of the last meal, which might have been boiled barley or might have been meat, and then the ever-present scent of damp wool. Wet wool, to be specific. It has a unique tang. Think mouldy dog with social anxiety. And above it all, like the cherry on this cursed sundae, is a sweetness. Faint, but sharp. Something fruity and wrong. You glance toward a barrel in the corner. Fermented apples, once meant to be cider, now a chemical experiment. One of the younger sailors tried drinking some last week and ended up vomiting into his own boots. You think his boots are still somewhere down here, probably evolving into their own life form. The thing is, you get used to it. Slowly. Your body fights at first. Your stomach flips. Your instincts scream. But after enough nights, Enough stormy, sleepless nights, your nose dulls, like it's been beaten into submission. The smell just becomes part of the ship, like the creaking of the timbers or the rats in the walls. You don't notice it unless someone new boards, and then you get to enjoy the look of horror on their face. A tiny perk. Some sailors swear they can smell land from miles away. That's how dull life at sea makes your senses. You spend enough nights in this stew of sweat, seawater, and despair, and suddenly the whiff of pine trees or fresh bread sends you into a trance. You crawl over someone's legs, he doesn't stir, and make your way toward a barrel that might be holding fresh water. You dip your hands in and splash your face. The water's cold and tastes faintly of iron and wood. Better than salt water? Barely. There's a strange comfort in knowing this is normal. This stench. You glance around. No one else seems bothered. One guy's already chewing something suspicious. Another is scratching at his scalp like he's auditioning for a lice commercial. And yeah, lice are a given. You probably have some too. Lice, fleas, bed bugs. Except there's no bed for them to infest. So they just settle into your clothes and get cozy. Here's a fun detail. Because sailors rarely change garments, especially during long voyages, the fabric they wore often doubled as their bedding. They'd sleep in the same shirt for weeks, maybe months, only washing it when the smell turned on them like a wild animal. And even then, where would they wash it? In the sea, salt water does not leave you feeling refreshed. It leaves you crusty. Literally. You develop a fine, gritty shell of salt around your body like a weird breaded cutlet. There's a bit of scholarly debate about just how awful the stench of a medieval ship was. Some suggest it might have been overstated. Dramatic accounts from land dwellers unfamiliar with seafaring life. Others argue it was worse than we can possibly imagine, and any modern person would gag within 5 minutes below deck. But from where you're sitting, knee-deep in crusty boots and fermented socks, you're leaning toward team worse than imaginable. You lean back against a beam and try to rest your head without pressing your ear against anything alive. The lantern swings overhead, casting shadows that make the planks look like moving waves. Your stomach rumbles. You consider checking the mess barrel, but the idea of eating in this odour factory makes you dry heave a little. Someone near you mutters in his sleep, something about geese. You blink slowly. It's the only entertainment you're getting right now. This is what nighttime is on a medieval ship. Cycles of unbearable discomfort that become, through sheer repetition, the backdrop of your existence. You almost start to romanticize it. Like, this is the sea life, right? Men have done this for centuries, shackled to the smell of each other's sweat, sleeping in puddles, dreaming of bread. You're part of a grand tradition, of the half asleep, half rotted. And still, some part of you starts to doze again, just a little. Eyes half-lidded, brain drifting. You think of green fields, a river, the feeling of dry linen on your skin. It's almost laughable. And then the ship lurches again, a sharp tilt to port. A barrel rolls somewhere in the dark. A shout goes up, but it's not for you. Not yet. You let your eyes shut. The stench hasn't gone away, but your brain is learning to ignore it, the way it learned to ignore the rocking and the cold. If anything, it's starting to feel familiar, like the smell of home, if your home was also a prison and a compost heap. The rats, the rot, the salt, it's all just part of the lullaby now. You don't like it. You'd trade it in a heartbeat for a bed, a bath, or even a moment of silence. But for now, it wraps around you like the ship's hull wraps around the sea, imperfectly, reluctantly, but tight enough to keep everything inside. You rest your head again, and this time, you don't fight the darkness. It's ugly, but it's consistent, and at sea, that's something like peace. Sleep, when it finally happens on a medieval ship during a stormy night, is less of a descent into rest and more like slipping into unconsciousness during a bar fight. Your body gives up, your senses blur out the noise, and your brain says, fine, have it your way, before flicking the switch. But the moment it does, the ship reminds you who's really in charge. Tonight that reminder comes in the form of a sudden drop. You don't see it, obviously, but your body feels it. The ship plunges, just a few feet maybe, but your gut leaps into your throat. You snap awake. It's pitch black. Your cheek is pressed against a damp plank, your ear full of creaks and muffled groans from all sides. For one surreal moment it feels like you're flying. Then gravity returns, and the hull beneath you slams back up like it's trying to punch your soul out of your mouth. Around you, men grunt, curse, shift. A few fall out of their makeshift nests entirely, bundles of cloaks and rope now scattered like laundry during an earthquake. Someone groans, probably bruised something. You don't move, you're too busy listening. That sound, the one right before the drop, wasn't thunder. It was a wave slapping the side of the ship, a massive one. The sea is still angry, maybe angrier than before. Welcome to what sailors call the cradle of death, that endless rolling and heaving. It's not just an inconvenience, it's a full-body assault. If you were raised on land, your inner ears are staging a mutiny by now. You've already thrown up twice on earlier nights, and you're pretty sure you'll do it again. But tonight, the rocking feels different, sharper, faster, like the ship is being toyed with. You try to wedge your shoulder against a beam to brace yourself. You don't want to end up rolling into the barrel of dried peas again, not after the last time. The floor beneath you pitches hard to starboard, and half your body lifts before thudding back down. It's like trying to sleep in a child's swing during a hurricane. Here's a grim historical fact to keep in your back pocket while you attempt to survive the night. More sailors probably died from falls, collapses and crushing injuries than from enemy swords during rough weather. Ships were not ergonomic. They weren't even safe. In a storm, the real enemy wasn't the sea, it was gravity. Sailors were frequently flung against walls, into masts, overboard. Ropes snapped, beams splintered, and ladders became launch pads. You feel the next roll before it comes. Your stomach does a slow flip. Someone nearby heaves loudly. You don't look. You focus on your breath, shallow and steady. Your fingers grip the nearest timber like it's a lifeline. You wonder, why am I doing this? You already know the answer. You needed the pay. You needed the escape. You thought the sea would be freedom. Instead, it's a wooden box full of stale air and swinging lanterns, trying to kill you in your sleep. The wind howls again, higher this time. There's a new sound too, something slapping above deck, a rhythmic smack 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 of loose canvas or a line untethered. That's someone else's problem, you tell yourself. You're not on watch, not until the bell rings, not unless the yelling starts. But it's hard to sleep with that sound. The creaking. It's the same creak every time, a long groan that runs the length of the ship like it's pulling apart. You feel it more than hear it, down in your bones. Every plank of wood on this ship is expanding, contracting, protesting the storm. Water seeps in, always in hairline cracks and soaked seams. The hull swells with moisture. There's a reason sailors call their ships she, because she complains all night, and you're always wondering if she's going to collapse on you. And yet, amidst the chaos, some part of you starts to drift again. Because that's what the body does when it's too tired to care. It shuts down. You enter that weird state where you're technically awake, but your brain plays reruns of your life like a badly tuned tavern song. A flash of your childhood. The smell of firewood. A half-remembered kiss from someone you left behind in a port town you already forgot the name of. Another wave hits. The ship bucks. A barrel clatters and rolls. You're rocked to the side and instinctively curl tighter. Somewhere, someone starts coughing. Not a polite cough either. The wet, lung-shaking kind that echoes too long. You hope it's just the cold. You pretend it is. Now here's the fringe fact of the night. Some sailors liked sleeping in storms. Seriously. They claimed the movement helped lull them into dreams, like babes in a cradle. The constant motion, so long as it didn't involve vomiting or falling, was oddly meditative, like being rocked by a violent god who just wanted you to chill out for once. It helped some of them forget where they were. It helped others remember who they were. You're not there yet. You're still in survival mode. But it's true, in a strange way, that the sea has rhythm. The rocking has a pattern. You start to feel it. Roll to starboard, creak, slam, pause, roll to port, creak, slam, pause. Your body, miserable and soaked and itchy, starts sinking to it. You breathe in time with the rhythm. You start to time your tiny movements, adjusting your hips between rolls, flexing your toes in the brief stillness. And in that awkward, aching posture, with rain still hammering the deck above and the hull groaning around you like it's trying to remember how to float, you feel it. The tiniest fragment of calm. Not peace, not comfort, just a pause, a moment, and it's enough. You close your eyes again. A rat squeaks somewhere. The ship shifts, but you're still here, clinging to your corner of the world. The sea may not want you to sleep, but you're going to try anyway. The sea doesn't care about your comfort, your warmth, or your dreams of soft beds and roaring hearths. What you get instead is a draft through the hull that somehow finds your ankles no matter how you curl up, a puddle that's definitely grown wider since you last blinked, and clothing that hasn't been dry in days, or weeks. Honestly, you've stopped keeping track. Somewhere back around your second sleepless night, you gave up on the idea of changing clothes. Now it's just rotate and pray. You shift slightly on your plank. Bad idea. It presses a line straight into your thigh, and your knee clicks in protest. The wool of your tunic is damp and coarse against your skin, like sleeping inside a bag made of angry sheep. You don't dare remove anything, even your sodden boots. That's a rookie mistake. New guys try it sometimes, peeling off their clothes after a long shift to air out. The smarter ones stop after the first time they try to put them back on, and realise they've frozen into the shape of their own regret. No one changes for bed. Not on a medieval ship. You sleep in what you work in, what you eat in, what you sometimes, unfortunately, get sick in. It's not just about time or convenience, it's survival. You need your gear ready. If you strip down and a storm hits or the captain calls all hands, you can't waste 10 minutes pulling on soaked leggings. You go up as you are, boots half-laced, belt loose, shirt clinging like seaweed. That's the drill, and besides, what would you even change into? You own, generously, maybe one extra set of clothing, usually just another linen shirt if you're lucky. It's likely stuffed into your sea chest, assuming it hasn't gone mouldy or been eaten by rats. And your sea chest, let's be honest, doubles as someone else's pillow right now. The other men are tucked into their own layers of misery. You can see one guy, Thomas, sleeping in his oilskin cloak, curled like a shrimp with his hood pulled tight over his face. Another sailor, bigger, snoring thunderously, lies sprawled across 2 sacks of barley, arms crossed over his chest like a knight in a tomb. There's no uniformity to how anyone sleeps. You find a place, you wedge your body into it, and you hold on. That doesn't mean it's completely lawless. There's an unspoken code about space. You don't cross into another man's sleeping area unless you want to lose a tooth. You don't move someone else's gear, and if someone's having a night terror, which happens more than you'd expect, you let them ride it out. Wake a screaming sailor too suddenly, and he might come at you swinging, dreaming of pirates or sea monsters or worse. You're getting used to the sensation of being damp all the time. It's no longer wet exactly. It's just a permanent clammy coating that's settled into your bones, like the sea has decided to slowly marinate you. Your tunic sticks to your spine in places, loose in others. Your socks, once wool, now indistinguishable from boiled rags, squish faintly if you shift too hard. And under your layers, your skin itches, constantly. From salt, from friction, from the invisible crawl of whatever insects have taken up residence in the seams. You can't even blame the weather entirely. Even on calmer nights, you sweat under your layers while working, and that sweat just soaks in, never quite evaporating. Over time, you start to develop what some sailors jokingly call sea rot. It's not a joke. Rashes, ulcers, infections. There's no fresh water to wash with. Soap? Forget it. You rub yourself down with rough cloth or sand if you're desperate, but most of the time, you just accept the funk and carry on. Of course, there were always the myths. Stories of certain sailors who kept a spare tunic wrapped in waxed cloth, hidden in the driest corner of the hold, pulling it out only on feast days or when making port. A clean shirt became a symbol of luxury, power, even seduction. If you could smell better than a goat carcass, you were practically nobility. The fringe fact here: some sailors believed that constantly wearing their clothes day and night actually protected them, not from the cold, but from evil spirits. Strip down too far, they said, and you invited something in. The sea was alive, after all, and full of things that didn't care for naked men in the dark. Scholars have debated just how widespread that superstition really was. Some argue that it's just sailors being pragmatic. Why undress when there's no benefit and plenty of risk? Others point out that seafaring was steeped in ritual and belief, and things like changing clothes could carry hidden meanings. Even modern sailors sometimes hold on to odd rituals, and in the medieval era, every action was tied to survival, luck, or punishment from the deep. You shift again, this time to pull your cloak tighter around your neck. It's the only layer that still traps a little warmth. It smells like fish oil and old sweat, but at least it's yours. You tuck your chin inside and close your eyes. The ship rocks again. gentler this time, almost rhythmically. You can hear the ocean slapping softly against the hull now, like it's lost interest in killing you for the moment. You can also hear someone snoring nearby. It's nasal, high-pitched and repetitive. You wonder if you could nudge them without starting a fight. Probably not worth it. Instead, you focus on the motion, the rocking. There's a strange comfort in it if you let it happen. The creaks of the beams, the soft shift of rope, even the occasional drip of condensation from above, they form a lullaby of sorts, ugly but consistent. Your body, wrapped in damp cloth and ache, starts to relax again, despite itself. You think briefly about home, about what a bed felt like, a real bed, with a straw mattress and thick wool blankets and a fire flickering across the walls. You can almost remember the smell, wood smoke and baked bread and something sweet. Maybe cloves. It's a dangerous memory. Too warm, too clean. If you hold on to it, the contrast might break you. So instead you think about the deck above, the wind calming, the ropes settling, the feeling of the ship breathing beneath you. And you drift, not into full sleep, but into that in-between place. The place where your body forgets it's cold and itchy, and your mind lets go of what your clothes feel like just for a little while. In your dream, you're walking on dry ground. The first time someone tells you that hammocks are only for rich men and dead ones, you laugh until you realize he's completely serious. On this ship, there are no gently swaying beds strung from the beams, no canvas cocoons to rock you to sleep. That's a fantasy for later centuries, or maybe for the Navy, if you're lucky enough to sail under a king's banner. Right now, in this medieval tub creaking through the night, you sleep on what's available. Planks, barrels, sacks of grain, the curve of the hull, or, if you're truly desperate, bundled ropes that imprint themselves into your spine like the worst kind of tattoo. It's not that no one knows what a hammock is. The design has been seen before, borrowed from distant lands by sailors with long memories. Some say they're used in warmer waters, where the air is still and the bugs bite hard. But here, in the churning northern seas, there's no place for luxury. The space below deck is tight, low, and brimming with cargo and human bodies. If someone tried to string up a hammock here, it'd just swing into the ceiling, slam into someone's head, or collapse under the weight of its ambition. Instead, you learn to shape yourself to the ship. That's what everyone does. You pick your space, stake your claim, and slowly adapt your body to it. Over time, you recognize which plank won't jab your hip, which curve of the hull gives your back the least trouble. Your sleeping area is like a nest made from bad decisions and damp materials, but it's yours. And in the cramped community of a ship at sea, that counts for something. Tonight your plank is familiar. You've slept here for weeks now, wedged between a stack of dried meat and a sullen guy named Gerard who hums sea shanties in his sleep. He's not doing it now, thankfully. Just a quiet wheeze, a little whistle every few seconds. You've learned to tune it out, the way you tune out the creaking beams and the far-off slosh of the sea breaking against the hull. Your body lies curled, knees drawn in, cloak pulled tight around your shoulders. The wooden floor beneath you is as unforgiving as ever, but your muscles have grown dull to its complaints. You're past the stage of tossing and adjusting. Now, it's just about waiting for sleep to find you again, if it can. Not all the sleeping spots are equal, of course. Some men get lucky. They claim a half-empty barrel to drape across, or a quiet patch beneath a supporting beam that doesn't leak. Others find scraps of old sailcloth to fold and wedge under their hips, cushioning the bones that have taken too many beatings from sharp wood. A few, through sheer force of personality or threat of violence, manage to stake out slightly wider patches of space and build little nests of rope, burlap and discarded wool. You envy those guys, until you remember they're also probably crawling with lice. And then there's the dangerous option, sleeping on the deck itself. Some men, particularly in better weather, will risk a nap topside, stretched out beneath the stars with nothing but the railing to stop them from rolling straight into the sea. It sounds romantic in theory. In practice, it's a death sentence during storms and an invitation for sunstroke during calm. But for a few brave or foolish souls, the promise of cool, fresh air is worth it. You once tried it. Just once. Crawled topside during a lull, found a quiet corner near the stern, and laid back to feel the wind. It was blissful for about 7 minutes. Then a wave slapped the deck and soaked you from boots to beard, and a crewmate nearly stepped on your hand in the dark. You crawled back down, colder and saltier than ever, and vowed never again. One sailor, a wiry man with more scars than teeth, insists he once slept hanging from the rigging. Says he tied himself to the ropes like a spider, suspended above the chaos, gently rocking with the mast. No one's sure if he's lying, but we all hope he is, because if he's telling the truth, then someone has truly lost the plot. Now for a bit of historical context to fold under your damp cloak tonight. Sailors in the medieval period rarely had designated sleeping arrangements. Unlike later ships, which developed actual hammocks and set bunks for crewmen, these earlier vessels were all about improvisation. Cargo took priority. Men found spaces between crates, barrels, coils of rope, wherever they could. On longer voyages, captains might designate sleeping shifts to conserve space, with one group resting while the other worked. But in bad weather, all rules were abandoned. You crashed where you could and dared anyone to move you. And here's the fringe fact for this stretch of the night. Some medieval seafarers believed that where you slept on the ship affected your dreams. Superstitions ran deep. If you slept near the bow, you were more likely to have visions, or so they claimed. The stern, that brought nightmares. The closer you were to the waterline, the more likely you were to hear voices. Most thought it was nonsense, but even now, lying tucked against the hull, you swear you hear something in the timbers. Just a whisper. Just once. You tell yourself it's the wind. There's no debate about this part, though. Scholars agree that medieval sailors slept badly. Diaries, journals, logs, when they existed, spoke of constant exhaustion. Men napped in bursts, caught shallow sleep between shifts, or collapsed outright from sheer fatigue. The idea of a full night's rest, that was land thinking. Here at sea, sleep was just another form of endurance. You adjust your body again, shifting your weight to avoid a knot in the wood beneath your ribs. The ship rocks gently now, less violently than earlier. The storm has passed into memory. For now, the rhythm of the waves is predictable, almost soothing. You find your breath sinking with it. Inhale on the lift, exhale on the fall. Someone above coughs. A boot thuds softly near the ladder. But no one calls out. No one needs you yet. You're safe for a little longer. You let your eyes close. You imagine what it must feel like to sleep in a real hammock, suspended and swaying, your body cradled in soft fabric instead of pressed into this unforgiving timber. You imagine being weightless, untouched by splinters, rats, or Gerard's wheezing. The thought is enough to lull you, just slightly, past the edge of waking. You dream of floating. You don't notice them at first. When you first joined the crew, your senses were too overwhelmed by the constant noise, stink, and salt water to notice anything else crawling, scratching, or gnawing. But now, a few weeks into the voyage, you're well acquainted with your real sleeping companions, and they are many. They are persistent, and some of them are probably watching you right now with beady little eyes. Let's start with the mice. Not the cute storybook ones wearing hats and singing sea shanties. No, these are jittery, sharp-nosed, darting little scavengers that live in the cracks of the hull and only come out when they think no one's looking. You've seen one more than once perched on a dangling rope or crouched beside a sack of oats, its tail twitching like a villain moustache. You used to flinch, but now you mostly just sigh and hope it's not chewing through your boots again. The ship is full of them. Mice, rats, even weevils if you dig deep enough into the food stores. And they're not just a nuisance, they're survivalists. They've lived on ships longer than most sailors. Some say they even know when a ship is doomed. There are stories, half joke, half warning, that if the rats start fleeing, you should too. You remember that one night, you'd barely been asleep for an hour, when something warm and squishy darted across your chest. You woke up swinging, nearly punched Gerard in the face. The rat got away, of course. It always does. But you didn't sleep well for days after that. Not because you were scared. No, that passed. But because now you knew they were there. Always. Waiting. And then there are the lice. Oh, the lice. You'd hoped, foolishly, that maybe the cold would scare them off. That maybe the salt would act as a deterrent. That maybe somehow you wouldn't get them. You were wrong. Everybody gets them. They nest in the seams of your clothes, in the threads of your cap, in the folds behind your knees. You scratch at first, then pick again. Eventually your fingers are just roaming your body constantly, searching for that little pinch, that slight movement, that itchy, maddening tickle that lets you know you are not alone. There are two schools of thought about lice on the ship. One, try to stay ahead of them by shaving everything you can, boiling your clothes when you make port, and constantly picking at your scalp like a monkey with anxiety. 2. Accept them as part of the job, name a few of them, and move on with your life. You're somewhere in between. You tried shaving once, but the result was less clean and more bleeding from the ear. And there's no fire here below deck to boil anything, just damp misery and layers of wool slowly turning into flea motels. So you pick, scratch, pick again. Welcome to bedtime. Tonight you feel something crawl across the back of your neck just as you're dozing off. You slap it quickly. Could be a louse, could be nothing, could be the ghost of dignity past. Either way, it's gone now and you're still here. Which brings us to the final roommate category, the supernatural kind. Ghosts if you're being dramatic. Spirits if you're being respectful. Madness if you ask the ship's carpenter, who mutters about voices in the wood every time it rains too hard. You haven't seen anything, but you've heard things. A knock that didn't come from above or below, a whisper that didn't match any language you know, a shadow that passed by when no one was there, and you're not the only one. Late at night, when men are half asleep and more honest than they mean to be, the stories come out. There's a woman who walks the bow, one sailor whispered 2 nights ago. She's always barefoot and she sings, but only when someone's about to die. Another swears there's a child on board. Not a real one, of course. No child could survive this. But a presence. Something small that climbs up into the rigging and giggles when no one's watching. You don't believe in any of it. Except when the wind dies suddenly, and the air feels too still. Except when the lantern swings, but there's no sway in the ship. Except when you're alone at the stern and feel the hairs on your neck rise for no reason at all. There's a scholarly debate, actually, about how many sailors believed in ghosts or spirits at sea. Some historians argue that superstition was a byproduct of isolation, exhaustion, and the ever-present possibility of death. Others suggest it was more deeply woven into maritime culture than most people realise, a kind of collective coping mechanism for a profession where one wrong step meant a watery grave. When you're hundreds of miles from land and one good storm away from disappearing forever, it's not unreasonable to start believing in the unseen. Tonight you're not in the mood to argue either way. You're too busy pulling your cloak tighter, folding your limbs in against the cold, trying not to itch at the places you know are already raw. You tuck your chin against your chest and listen. The ship groans. A rat scurries somewhere above. A soft snore rises and falls like a sigh. The air is thick with breath, damp wool, and the endless scent of the sea soaking into everything. You wonder how long it takes before you stop noticing the difference between yourself and your environment. When you're no longer on the ship, but part of it. Fungus, flesh, rope, salt. You drift towards sleep, finally, slowly. The rocking is manageable tonight. The sounds familiar. Nothing new slamming into the hull, no fresh screams or calls to arms. You allow your mind to soften, to peel away from the crust of reality and fall inward. And just as you're slipping under, you hear it. A scratch. A long one. Just beyond your feet. You freeze. Another scratch. Then a soft thud. Then silence. It could be the rat again. Or it could be someone. Something. Dragging their fingers across the wood. You open one eye. Nothing. Just darkness. The kind that wraps around you like wet cloth. You breathe in. You breathe out. If it's a ghost, you think, it better not have lice too. You smile to yourself, pull your cloak tighter, and let the dark take you. The idea of a full night's sleep is a joke, and the crew stopped pretending otherwise long ago. Out here, sleep isn't something you get. It's something you steal. You snatch it in short, jagged pieces, between waves, between shifts, between the moments the sea forgets to be cruel. And when you're lucky enough to fall into that heavy, dreamless kind of sleep, someone usually yanks you out of it before your brain even remembers what rest is supposed to feel like. Tonight, that someone is a greasy hand shaking your shoulder, not gently. You blink awake, your head still swimming in half dreams. It takes a moment to remember where you are, who you are, why everything smells like wet rope and regret. Then the hand tightens and a voice whispers, "Your watch. Move." You groan, not because you're surprised, but because you're still halfway between sleep and paralysis. Your limbs are heavy, your mouth is dry. You might have been asleep for 30 minutes, maybe less. Time doesn't mean much on this ship. The sun is long gone, and down here every hour feels exactly the same. Dark, damp, and stinking of breath and mildew. You push yourself upright, bones protesting with every movement. Your back pops like it's full of loose marbles. Beside you, Gerard's still snoring. He got the earlier watch, which means he's free to curl up now and ignore the world, smug and oblivious. You hate him a little for that. You also envy him completely. You pull your cloak tight, try to rub some heat back into your fingers, and stagger toward the ladder leading up to the deck. The boards creak underfoot. Someone coughs. A rat darts away from the lantern glow. Just another night on this beautiful floating pile of suffering. Watch duty, they say, builds character. What it really builds is sleep deprivation and a deeply unhealthy relationship with time. The ship runs on a cycle of 4-hour watches. 2 shifts per day, more if you're unlucky. Day or night doesn't matter. When your turn comes, you go. Even if your eyes burn, your legs are shaking, and your brain is whispering nonsense about how you're actually still asleep, and this is all a dream shaped like misery. Tonight, your watch is the graveyard slot, midnight to 4, the worst one, the one where the cold creeps deepest, where the ocean seems its most unforgiving, and where your body threatens to betray you with every gust of wind. Climbing the ladder feels like punishment. You grip each rung like it might be your last. When you finally emerge, the wind hits you immediately, carving through your cloak like you're made of paper. The deck is slick and gleaming in the moonlight. Above, the sails flap lazily. No storm right now, thank the gods. But there's a biting breeze and just enough movement in the waves to keep the rigging creaking like a haunted house. 2 other crewmen are already there. One stands at the bow, staring into the dark sea. The other paces slowly, arms crossed, eyes distant. No one speaks. You take your place near the stern. Your job is to watch. For what exactly? Ships mostly. Rocks sometimes. Mermaids, if you're delirious. Mostly, though, you just look out into the dark and try to stay upright. There's a trick to it, how you plant your feet just so, how you shift your weight with the sway of the ship, how you keep your body loose enough to absorb the motion without losing your balance. It's like dancing with a partner who wants you dead. The cold is worse up here. It cuts past your layers and nestles deep in your bones. You shuffle in place, stomp your feet a little, trying to wake yourself up. The sky above is a sprawl of stars. So many it makes your chest ache. The kind of view that would have taken your breath away back on land. Out here, it just makes you feel small. You fight the heaviness behind your eyes. Sleep tries to crawl back in. Your body's pleading to shut down, but you can't afford to blink too long or lean too far or rest too heavily. A sailor once did that during a quiet night watch. Fell asleep leaning against the rail. When the ship rolled, he didn't. They didn't find him. Just a boot floating half a mile behind. And yet, despite the risk, there's something about this stretch of night that feels different, sacred almost, a kind of stolen solitude. You're exhausted, yes. You're cold, aching, half-conscious. But for a little while it's just you and the sea. No shouting, no rats, no snoring. Just the wind through the rigging and the rhythm of water against wood. You remember hearing once that sailors on long voyages learn to nap standing up. It sounded ridiculous until now. You swear you're halfway there. Your body begins to sway with the ship back and forth, just enough to stay balanced. Your eyes blur. You blink hard. You count. Some sailors swear by counting stars, others by repeating prayers. You just focus on your breath. In, out, stay awake. Somewhere behind you the bell rings. Half an hour gone, maybe less. Time dilates in the night. You shuffle your feet again, stretch your arms, whisper a song under your breath. One of the old ones, the kind no one teaches but everyone seems to know. You hum to keep your brain busy. Anything to keep from drifting. There's an open debate among historians about whether medieval sailors followed strictly enforced watches, or if they were more chaotic in their rotations. Logs and records are sparse. Some ships might have used bells or hourglasses, others simply rotated men based on seniority or need. But one thing's clear, sleep was never sacred. Work came first, always. You slept when the sea allowed it, not when your body begged. A fringe belief held by some old salts was that you could bank sleep, like stacking it away for the hard days ahead. Sailors who lived by this tried to nap every chance they got, curling up in corners for 10 minutes at a time, believing it would build up a kind of sleep reserve. Whether it worked or not is up for debate, but you've seen a man fall asleep mid-conversation, mouth open, eyes glassy. Maybe it's more of a survival strategy than a science. You lose track of time again, the stars shift. A gull cries somewhere in the dark. You blink and realise your knees have locked. You shake them loose. You look around. No threats, no ships, no ghosts as far as you can tell. Just sea, endless and hungry. When your relief finally comes, a wiry man with one good eye and the patience of a saint, you nod, step back, and stumble toward the hatch. Your feet barely work. Your joints crack. Your breath fogs in the air as you descend again into the belly of the ship, back into the stench, back to the heat of sleeping bodies, back to your damp plank beside Gerard, who hasn't moved an inch. You curl back up, cloak over your face, hands tucked into your chest, and pray for a few more minutes of sleep before someone calls your name again. And maybe, just maybe, the sea will let you have them. You wake to the sound of water. Not the usual comforting hush of the waves against the hull, but a new kind of water. A drip with rhythm, a splash with purpose, and the unmistakable glug of something collecting where it shouldn't. You don't move at first. Your eyes stay closed. Maybe it's a dream. Maybe it's just the sea playing tricks again. But then a second splash follows the first, closer this time, and your eyes snap open in the dark. It's still night. Or at least the dim lantern glow hasn't changed. A few of the crew are asleep, limbs twisted into impossible angles, cloaks clinging to their bodies like damp burial shrouds. The air is thicker than usual, heavy, muggy, and the smell, well, it's gotten worse, which you didn't think was possible. You shift, slowly, and feel something cold press against your hip. Water. Not just condensation, or a lazy drip from a loose beam. A small pool has formed where your body was. You sit up with a grunt, wipe your hands on your tunic and look down. There's a shallow puddle stretching across the floor now, hugging the edges of the hull. You tap your foot in it, definitely seawater, and rising. The thought you've been trained to fear slinks into your mind. Leak. You're not the only one who notices. Another sailor stirs nearby, mutters a curse under his breath, then scurries off toward the bulkhead, bare feet slapping against wet wood. A moment later, you hear low voices. Concerned, not panicked. But that could change fast. You swing your legs over the side of your plank, plant your boots in the puddle, and stand. Cold water seeps instantly through the soles. Someone nearby shouts for a bucket line. It's not a full emergency yet, but everyone knows how quickly things can go from mildly annoying to, hope you know how to swim in mail. You stumble forward, grab a bucket, and fall into the rhythm. Scoop, toss, pass. It's a clumsy line. Men half asleep, bleary-eyed, shivering. But it works. The water isn't gushing in. It's a slow leak, probably from a seam strained by the earlier storm. Still, you're below the waterline, and no one wants to find out how much the ship can take before it becomes a coffin. There's something about this moment, about bailing out your own bed, that captures the true joy of medieval sailing. You thought sleeping was hard before. Try doing it in a space that might turn into a bathtub at any second. The ship doesn't just rock you, it reminds you that you are entirely at its mercy. Eventually, after what feels like an hour of cold splashes and aching shoulders, someone plugs the leak, or at least slows it. The puddle stops growing. The bucket line dissolves. You slump back toward your spot, now damp in a whole new way. You look at your plank. It glistens in the lantern light. You could wring it out and water a garden, but you lie down anyway, because what else is there to do? The sea doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't pause to give you time to dry off or to find a fresh blanket. Not that you have one. It just keeps rolling, groaning, and whispering things through the hull that make your spine tingle. As you try to settle again, you realise just how loud the ship is at night. It isn't quiet, even when no one's speaking. There's the constant creak of wood, a sound so regular it becomes background noise until it changes, and then your stomach clenches. There's the gentle slap of waves against the hull, the groan of the mast swaying slightly in the wind, and the high metallic ping of a loose rigging somewhere above. And then there's the truly terrifying sound. Nothing. Every once in a while everything goes still. No creaks, no water, no footsteps above. That's when everyone instinctively holds their breath, because silence means tension. A pause before something breaks. And in those rare, uncanny moments, The ship almost feels like it's listening. You pull your cloak tighter, shift on your damp bed and try to force your eyes shut. But your ears are awake now, cataloguing every groan, every drip, every whisper of rope. You're not imagining them. Those soft sounds, they're real. They echo down through the beams like breath through old lungs. Some sailors say the ship has a voice, that if you learn to listen, you can hear her mood. Tonight she sounds annoyed, not furious, not panicked, just irritated, like she didn't appreciate the storm and she definitely didn't enjoy taking on water. You settle again, awkwardly curled into a C shape, careful to keep your boots on the driest patch of plank. Gerard hasn't stirred at all. Unbelievable. Man could sleep through a Kraken attack. His snores rise and fall like a baritone tide. It should be annoying, but right now it's comforting, familiar. The hull creaks again. The leak you hope is really sealed. You'll find out for sure in the morning, assuming there is one. You drift in and out of consciousness. Not sleep, not really. Just a state of suspension where your body stops screaming for rest and starts accepting exhaustion as the new normal. Tonight's historical note. Leaks were so common on medieval ships that many vessels had permanent crew assigned just to manage them. The bilge crew, they were called, men whose job it was to live in the lowest, dampest part of the ship and keep it from drowning from the inside. Imagine that. Your entire life spent crouched in the dark, surrounded by rotting timbers and ankle-deep water, with only rats and bad air for company. Compared to them, your plank and your leaky corner almost feel luxurious. There's some debate among scholars about just how watertight these vessels really were. Some say the caulking methods, pitch and oakum packed into seams, were surprisingly effective. Others argue that every crossing was a game of how long until we sink. Judging by tonight's puddle, you're leaning toward the latter. You hear a rat nearby, skittering across a beam. It pauses, sniffs, scampers on. You feel your own breath slow. The ship groans again, but softer this time, like a sigh. The sea outside has calmed. And somehow, despite the wet, despite the noise, despite the fact that your bed tried to become a swimming pool, you begin to fade again. The cold is still there, but your body has stopped resisting it. Your brain gives in just enough, and the last thing you hear before slipping away is the rhythmic drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the dark. Not a threat, just a lullaby. Somewhere in the dark someone's humming. It's low and tuneless at first, more of a murmur than a melody, but it threads through the air like smoke. You're not sure how long it's been going on. Maybe it started when you drifted off, or maybe it only just began, crawling out of the corners of the ship like a strange kind of fog. It doesn't sound like fear, more like habit, a nighttime ritual. You shift on your plank, trying not to draw attention, and listen. It's Alain. Of course it's Alain. Always the one with some odd habit to keep his sanity intact. He's the kind of man who talks to the ship, pats the mast like a dog, and swears the cat understands Portuguese. And now he hums himself to sleep in the middle of the hold, like the rest of you aren't here trying not to lose your minds in the dark. Still, you don't hate it. You've learned that sailors, especially the ones who've done this for years, develop nighttime rituals to survive. Some pray, others wrap their cloaks a specific way, left over right, like they're binding their luck into the folds. A few whisper old songs or mutter stories to themselves, barely audible above the creaking wood. Alain hums. It's just one more way of telling the dark I'm still here. You don't get me yet. You lie still, listening. There's a rhythm to it. Not quite a lullaby, not quite a sea shanty. Just a repeated humming loop, weaving between the sighs and snores of the others. The ship rocks gently now, mercifully tame. The storm seems far behind. You can almost forget how violently you were being flung across the deck just hours ago. You take stock of yourself. Bones, sore, feet, damp, eyes, gritty, lice, always. But you're alive, and at sea, that counts for more than you'd think. You shift a bit, careful not to wake Gerard, whose arm is now draped over the edge of his barrel pillow like a dislocated puppet. His breathing is even and deep, the kind that suggests he'll wake up either completely rested or completely confused. Sleep is a luxury here, but you're learning that even the act of trying to sleep is a ritual. There's a whole series of tiny gestures you repeat each night to coax your body into surrendering. The way you fold your cloak, the position you wedge your boots, which shoulder you lie on. You've been through it so many times now, your body does half the work before your brain catches up. Tonight, you go through the motions again. Tuck the elbow here, breathe through the nose, ignore the rat that just made a sound like it dropped something. This is where the sailors' rituals come in handy, not just for comfort, but for sanity. Some men refuse to sleep without touching wood. Others won't sleep under a beam, afraid it might splinter and crush them in the night. One man sleeps with a dried sprig of rosemary tied into his belt, claiming it wards off bad dreams. Another rubs salt on his boots before lying down, mumbling something about sea spirits. It all seems absurd until you're out here for weeks, until you've gone too long without proper rest, and the darkness presses in too close, and the ship feels just a bit too alive. Then you start doing things you never thought you would. You tie knots in your cloak a certain way. You whisper nonsense to the lantern. You hum, maybe, like Alain does, because it reminds you you're still in control. There's a fringe belief among medieval sailors, passed along in hushed tones and half-laughs, that sleep is when the sea tries to steal you. Not by drowning, not by wave or wind, but by reaching into your dreams and unravelling you from the inside. They say you can hear her sometimes, calling your name through the wood grain. That if you fall too deep into sleep, she can pull you into the water without ever touching your body. That's why some sailors refuse to sleep alone even if there was room. You needed someone beside you, a body, a tether, someone to shake you awake if your breathing slowed or your dreams got too loud. Not because they loved you or even liked you, but because if you went under, they might be next. It's a ridiculous story, of course, just sailors talk. But tonight, when you close your eyes and the ship creaks like a voice and Alain's humming grows fainter, you wonder how far off it really is. There's debate among historians about just how much structure there was to nighttime routines on ships like this. Some evidence points to strict order, evening meals, cleaning rotations, prayer. Others suggest it was more of a free-for-all, a desperate attempt to do whatever made the night bearable. What's certain is that ritual, no matter how small, became a form of resistance, a way to reclaim a little sliver of control in a world dominated by unpredictability. You feel it yourself. Even something as simple as breathing in time with the ship's rocking becomes a kind of ceremony. You sync with it, let it carry you, you let go. Alain has stopped humming now. The hold is quiet again, except for the usual sounds. The crack of the hull shifting slightly, the groan of wood rubbing against damp nails, the occasional snore or cough. The lantern swings softly, casting long, lazy shadows across the beams. You drift. Not all the way, but enough. Enough to feel your limbs relax. Enough to let the edges of thought blur. The sea can't quite reach you. Not tonight. You've done your rituals. You've made your peace. You've kept your rhythm. You dream of things you barely remember. Your mother's hands, a warm loaf of bread, the crunch of snow under real boots. The dream doesn't last. It never does. But it carries you just far enough to forget for a while that you're wrapped in wet wool, surrounded by rodents and possibly sharing air with a ghost or two. And when you wake again, it'll be to the smell of boiled oats, someone stepping on your foot, or the call for the next watch. But for now, for these few precious moments, you sleep not in spite of the storm or the noise or the filth, but through them. And that on a medieval ship in the middle of nowhere is nothing short of a miracle. You dream in colours that don't exist. Everything is hazy and strange. The sky shaped like a sail, the clouds like puffed up seabirds, the ground soft and shifting beneath your feet. Not dirt, not wood, but something like bread dough. You're walking, barefoot, warm. The sun is there, not hidden behind a veil of mist, but really there, gold and wide and generous. Somewhere nearby, someone is singing a tavern song. You almost remember the words. Then the floor lurches under you and the dream collapses like a rotten plank. You wake with a start, your face pressed against the same wet cloak you've been using as a pillow for weeks now. It smells like salt and sour breath and wool that's been chewed on by regret. Your limbs protest as you shift upright, and your back cracks so loudly you're surprised Gerard doesn't sit up and yell at you. But no, he's still asleep, drooling slightly, muttering something about geese, the usual. You scrub your face with your hands and take a shaky breath. The hold is dark and quiet. A few other sailors are rustling in their sleep, but no one's moving much yet. You should be grateful. It's one of those rare moments where you're not being screamed at or rained on or covered in someone else's vomit, and for just a moment you sit in it. That heavy stillness, your thoughts still tangled in the strange dream. It's not the first time you've had one like that, and you're not alone. Almost every sailor you know has weird dreams out here. Not nightmares necessarily, though those happen too. But dreams that feel more real than reality. Vivid, sensory, full of movement and noise and warmth. The exact opposite of ship life. You think it's your brain trying to remember what it used to be like to live on solid land? Or maybe it's your body begging you to take it somewhere that smells less like fermented despair. There's a rumour among the older sailors that the sea messes with your mind after a while. Not just the salt or the motion, but the sheer longevity of being surrounded by the same things day after day. The same timbers, the same waves, the same faces, the same smells. It tricks your brain into dreaming harder, deeper, almost like it's rebelling. You can't have comfort during the day? Fine. Here it is, hidden in the folds of your subconscious. But you'll have to pay for it later. And you do? Waking up is cruel. Coming back from dreams of warmth and open skies to this dim, leaking, rat-infested barrel of misery is like being dropped into cold water. You try not to let it get to you, but it does. The historical record on sailors' dreams is thin. Hardly surprising. Nobody was carving their nightmares into the ship's log between shifts of hauling rope and bailing water. But from what little has survived, letters, journals, passing remarks, we know the dreams were intense, and often strangely domestic. Men dreaming of wives they'd barely known, of dinners they'd never eaten, of children they hadn't yet met, as if the sea had forced their minds to build something soft and warm just to fight the cold. And then there were the weird ones, like the ones Alain swears he has every time the moon is high, dreams where the ship is alive, breathing like a beast, with sails for wings and ropes that tangle around you like fingers. Or the cook, who once dreamed he was a gull, soaring so high he saw the curve of the earth, only to wake up in the middle of the night and try to jump off the stern. He broke his ankle. Never did tell us what the view was like. You've had your fair share too, that one where you were buried in grain, unable to breathe, the one where you were standing in a dry tavern, but couldn't order a drink because your hands had turned to hooks, and now this newest one, the dough floor and the sun and the singing. What did it mean? Probably nothing. Probably just your brain trying to remember what dry felt like. You glance around the hold again. It's quieter than usual. A few men have curled deeper into their cloaks. Someone is whispering a prayer. The lantern's wick is low, sputtering. Outside, the wind sounds different. Softer, but not gone. You can hear the sails fluttering like tired lungs. You lie back again, not because you think you'll sleep, but because you have to try. Sleep is the currency of survival out here. You steal what you can. Your plank is still damp. Your shoulders ache. You shift your weight, press your eyes shut, and wait. You wonder what it would be like to sleep in a real bed again. With a mattress, not straw or burlap sacks, a thick blanket, clean sheets, maybe even a pillow that doesn't smell like wet wool and roasted despair. You wonder if you'll be able to sleep when that day comes, or if your body will be too used to the sway, too conditioned to discomfort. You try to imagine it. The weight of a blanket, the soft press of a mattress, the hush of silence that isn't laced with groans and drips and muttering. It seems almost alien, like dreaming of another life entirely. And still, against all odds, your body begins to give in again. Another sailor mutters nearby. His voice rises slightly, unintelligible at first, then clear. I said get off the boat. His tone is panicked. His head thrashes. You open one eye and watch as his arms jerk and his legs kick out. Sleepwalking, dream fighting. You've seen it before. He shouts now, loud enough that it echoes against the hull. A few men stir. Someone curses. Another throws a boot. The dreaming man jolts upright, confused, eyes wide and glassy. You lie still, just watching. This is the price of those vivid dreams. They're gifts, yes, but also curses. They trick your body into thinking it's free, safe, warm. And then your body wakes up and lashes out against the lie. The man rubs his face, breathes hard, and lies back down without a word. You close your eyes again, not to sleep, but to disappear. Just for a little while. Just until the next shout, or the next splash, or the next rat decides your foot looks like a decent path to take. You hope the next dream is boring. Just a field, maybe a rock to sit on, something still. No singing, no flying, just quiet. It starts with a footstep. Not a real one. Your eyes are closed, but your body knows the difference. Real footsteps on deck have weight. They thud and shift, the boots scraping against soaked boards in familiar rhythms. This one is dream wrong. It's weightless, sharp, like something stepping not on the ship but through it. You feel your whole body twitch. Your ears perk before your eyes open. You're not fully awake, but the sensation creeps in fast, a kind of creeping awareness that slides in through the corners of your consciousness like a fog. You're dreaming again, you think. But something's off. It feels too real, too cold. You try to open your eyes, but your eyelids resist. Your limbs are heavy. You're lying flat, face toward the hull, and something in your brain is saying, "Don't move, don't move, not yet." Then you hear it again, a step, lighter than any sailor's foot, and then another, closer. You force your eyes open this time, your lashes sticky from sea air and sleep. You're still in the hold. The lantern is out now, burned down sometime during the last stretch of unconsciousness. Moonlight filters in through a narrow hatch above, casting a soft glow across the beams. You glance around. Everyone else is asleep, or pretending to be. Alain's rolled onto his back, mouth slightly open. Gerard is snoring again, soft this time. The rest are scattered, unmoving, cloaked in their own nightly rituals, but something's different. You don't know what it is until you realize your heart is racing. Your pulse is pounding against your ears like fists against the hull. Your body is reacting to something your mind hasn't caught up with. Then, softly, something brushes your foot. You don't scream. You don't even move. You just freeze. Because that wasn't a rat. That wasn't the usual little pawed shuffle across your boots or a tail flicking past your heel. That felt like fingers. Cold ones. Thin. Deliberate. You look down. Slowly. Nothing. Just the darkness. Just your own filthy boots, resting in their damp groove against the side of your plank. Nothing else. But your body doesn't believe what your eyes are telling it. Every hair on your arms is standing upright. Your skin prickles with the unmistakable electricity of not being alone. And not just surrounded by sleeping crewmates, but something else. Something that doesn't belong. You sit up slowly. Your joints complain. Your breath stays shallow. You glance around again. A few men shift in their sleep, but no one else stirs. You're the only one awake now, and the hold is quiet in that very specific way that isn't actually quiet. It's waiting. You've heard stories, of course, every sailor has, about the ones who sleep too close to the edge and disappear in the night, their blankets left behind like shed skin. About the ones who sit up screaming at nothing, trying to claw at shadows only they can see. About the ones who start walking, eyes open, body moving, mind still dreaming, and who don't stop until they walk straight off the deck into the sea. You never thought you'd see one, until now. You hear another step, this time not near you, across the hold. You turn your head slowly and that's when you see him. Or at least you see someone. He's standing near the beam beside the ladder, half in shadow, half in moonlight. Barefoot, shirt open, hair clinging to his cheeks like wet string. His eyes are wide, fixed on something you can't see. His lips are moving, whispering something too faint to hear. One hand reaches forward, then falls. His knees wobble. He's not fully awake. That much is clear. You don't know his name. He's one of the newer men, joined a few ports ago, barely spoke a word since. You think he was a farmer before. You think he said something once about missing a dog. You've seen him sleep like this before, shallow and restless, eyes twitching behind his lids. But this is different. He's not just dreaming. He's moving, and you know where he's going. You rise quickly, every muscle aching in protest. You move as quietly as you can, dodging scattered boots and barrels, skimming past men curled into themselves like drying seaweed. The sleepwalker reaches the bottom of the ladder. He lifts one foot, then the next. Slow, deliberate. You catch him by the arm just as he plants his foot on the third rung. He jolts violently, gasping like he's surfaced from underwater. His eyes snap to yours, wide, unfocused, full of the deep kind of panic that doesn't come from this world. He starts to scream. You clap your hand over his mouth and pull him back, murmuring something low and calm you don't even recognize as your own voice. His body shudders, then goes slack, He slumps into you, breathing fast, sweat pouring down his face like he's just run a mile. A few of the other men stir now. One groans. Another mutters, "What now?" and rolls over. You help the dreamwalker back to his plank. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. His eyes say everything. Whatever he saw, whatever he dreamed, it didn't stay in his head. Not entirely. And suddenly, the stories don't seem so far-fetched. The ones about men pulled by voices in their sleep. About dreams so vivid they become commands. You remember what the old boatswain once said, "If you sleep too close to the sea, she'll invite you down." There's scholarly argument about whether sleepwalking was common among medieval sailors. No logs mention it, no captains wrote about it. But why would they? Who would admit their crew was wandering around like ghosts in the night? It's not the kind of thing that fits neatly into official records. Still, one fringe theory suggests that the rhythmic motion of the ship, the sensory deprivation, and the constant stress created a perfect recipe for what they now call parasomnias: sleepwalking, night terrors, and even shared hallucinations. Spend enough time rocking on the water, and your brain stops trusting what's real. Back on your plank, you try to settle again. Your heart is still racing. The man beside you is curled into himself now, shivering, eyes open but empty. You don't ask him what he saw. You don't want to know. Instead, you wrap your cloak tighter. You wedge your boots into the crook of the wall so you won't slip if you need to jump up again, and you stare at the ceiling. You're not sure you'll sleep again tonight, because now you're listening, not to the rats, not to the creaks, not even to Gerard's occasional goose noises. You're listening for footsteps. Morning, if you can call it that, arrives slowly. There's no sudden burst of light or cheerful birdsong, just a gradual shift in the quality of the dark, a subtle easing that turns black into grey into something a little less oppressive. Above, the hatch lets in a pale sliver of sky, dull and colourless, like the underbelly of a fish. You open your eyes not because you're rested, but because the discomfort has piled too high to ignore. The first thing you notice is the itching. Your neck, your wrists, behind your ears, everywhere your skin meets fabric feels like it's been attacked by invisible needles. You scratch, and it helps for a second. Then the itch just moves, travelling like a mischievous spirit from one joint to the next. You know what it is. Everyone does. The ship has become a paradise for lice. You sit up slowly, feeling your joints click like old hinges. Your cloak is wrapped around your shoulders, soaked through from both sweat and mist. You don't remember pulling it tighter during the night, but at some point your body must have tried to cocoon itself. The wool is heavy and rough, and as you peel it back from your skin, you notice little clusters of something near the seams. Tiny dots. Brownish. Moving. Lice eggs. Perfect. You sigh. Long and slow, like you're trying to exhale your entire soul. You reach up, scratch behind your ear again, and look down at your tunic. It's no better. The linen is stained, stretched out, crusted with salt and, you hope, just dirt. You give it a sniff and immediately regret it. This is your sleepwear, your workwear, your everything wear. It hasn't been changed in weeks. Washed. Not even close. There's nowhere to do that. If you want to clean your clothes, you beat them with a rope or shake them out into the wind and hope nature takes pity. But even then, they never dry. Not completely. The ship is too damp. Too alive. Some men sleep bare-chested, hoping to air out. You tried that once. Within 5 minutes, you were shivering so hard your teeth hurt, and by morning you had new sores along your back where the planks had dug into your skin. You've worn your tunic every hour since. Now it clings to you like a second skin, an itchy, disease-ridden, wool-laced second skin that smells faintly like cheese left in the sun. You glance around the hold. Most of the crew is waking now, stirring slowly like earthworms after a storm. Groans echo through the space. Someone sneezes wetly into the dark. Another man swears at his boots. Apparently a rat chewed through the leather again. Typical. Gerard naturally is still asleep. You consider kicking him. Just a little nudge with your toe. But what's the point? He'll wake up when it's least convenient and complain the loudest. Some things are predictable. You take a moment to inspect the rest of your gear. Your socks are soaked again. No surprise. The left one has a hole forming near the heel, a fresh gift from yesterday's shift. You press your toes against it and feel a chill rush in like a whisper from the sea. And then there's the blanket. Calling it a blanket is generous. It's more of a rag. Once, long ago, it was probably thick wool, tightly woven and dyed a rich navy or forest green. Now it's mostly grey, threadbare, stiff with salt, and stiff in general. You run your fingers over it and feel patches that have crusted over from something. Not sure what. You stopped asking weeks ago. You wrap it around your shoulders anyway, or it stinks. You want to be grossed out, disgusted, offended even. But honestly, it's just normal now. This is how you sleep. This is how everyone sleeps. Swaddled in damp wool, wearing clothes that haven't known sunlight or soap in months, battling an army of lice so bold they probably have a chain of command. One of the younger sailors, the one with the unfortunate facial fuzz, scratches at his stomach and mutters, "I think they're building a house in my navel." No one laughs. Not because it's not funny, but because we're all wondering if it might be true. A quick historical note for your sanity. Yes, medieval sailors slept in their clothes, and yes, they were almost always infested with something. Lice, fleas, even mites. There's documentation of entire ships being fumigated, after they docked, of course, because the infestation was so bad. Some sailors tried remedies, vinegar rinses, ash rubbed into the scalp, even cold seawater baths during calm days. But out here, in the middle of a voyage, those luxuries are just dreams. The reality? You itch, and then you itch some more, and then you find peace in scratching. And then there's the fringe fact, because of course there is. Some believed lice were good luck, that as long as they stayed on your body you'd stay alive. The idea being, lice won't live on corpses. If they're sticking around, so are you. It's disgusting. It's illogical. And it's exactly the kind of logic that takes root when you're half mad from sleeplessness and salt exposure. You stand up, stretching your arms until your shoulders pop. Your cloak falls around your knees like a damp curtain. The smell rises with you, musky, oily, alive. You scratch behind your neck again. Then, finally, you move toward the ladder. It's time for the morning slog. Eat something vaguely edible, take your shift, and pretend your body isn't quietly falling apart. The deck above is grey and cold, but the wind is calm. That's something. The ocean stretches out in every direction like a blanket of slate. No ships, no land, just sky and water and the groan of ropes swaying lazily in the morning breeze. You breathe deep, even though the air smells like rope tar and fish guts. At least it's fresh. And then you feel it again, that itch, lower this time, somewhere, personal. You sigh, long and defeated, of course. You mutter a prayer to St. Elmo, roll your eyes toward the sky and scratch. This, you think, is medieval luxury. You don't expect to be chosen for the midnight watch. It's usually handed off to the greenest of the green, or those who made some offhand insult to the captain's dog or the cook's stew. But tonight, your name gets called, and before you can protest or fake a limp, or both, you're already being shoved toward the ladder with a lantern in one hand, and a half-frozen chunk of bread in the other. Midnight watch it is. Climbing the ladder is harder than usual. Your legs ache from the day's work, your shoulders are sore from hauling rigging, and your arms still itch from that suspicious patch of something growing in the sleeve seam of your tunic. But you drag yourself upward, step by splintered step, until the night sky opens up above you, vast and quiet and endless and cold. So cold. The sea air hits your face like a slap. Not a cruel one, more like a bored reminder that comfort isn't part of the deal here. You step out onto the deck, boots thudding softly against the planks. It's not stormy tonight. No rain, no crashing waves, just the steady groan of the ship, the flap of slack sails, and the whisper of wind slipping past your ears. You exhale, breath steaming, and settle in near the starboard rail. The sea is vast and ink-black beneath the moon, smooth like oil, glinting faintly where the stars scatter their reflection across it. No waves tonight, just slow rolls beneath the surface, like a great beast breathing in its sleep. This is what passes for a gift out here. A calm night, a sky full of stars, and 4 hours of silence where no one's screaming or vomiting or bleeding. You lean against the rail, fold your arms over your chest and let your shoulders settle into the rhythm of the rocking ship. It takes time to realize how quiet everything is. You've spent weeks surrounded by noise, the shriek of wind through ropes, the pounding of rain, the constant bickering below deck, the rats in the walls, the dripping from above. Even sleep is loud out here. So this moment, this rare, sprawling stillness, is so alien, it makes you tense at first. Your ears keep reaching for sound, for movement, for signs of something going wrong. But nothing happens, and slowly your shoulders drop. But there's something else here tonight, the stars. You don't often get to really see them, but now, with the clouds gone and the sea calm, they explode across the sky in dizzying numbers. They don't twinkle like they do in stories. They shimmer, yes, but mostly they burn, white and blue and yellow. Some flicker like dying candles, others just sit there, bold and unmoving. You try to count them. You fail instantly. There are too many. It's beautiful and unnerving, because the longer you stare, the more it feels like they're staring back. You shift your weight, wrap your cloak tighter around you, and try to pick out the few constellations you recognize. The hunter, the dragon's tail, maybe the sea crown, though that one might just be a cluster of particularly confident dots. One of the older sailors, Henrik, once tried to teach you how to navigate by the stars. You forgot most of it, but you remember the way he said it. The stars are honest. They'll always tell you where you are, even if you don't want to know. Now you get what he meant. You breathe in through your nose. The air smells faintly of brine and old rope. Not bad. Better than the hold. Better than waking up with a mouthful of wool, and definitely better than dreaming about food and then waking up chewing your own sleeve. This is peace, in its weird, cold, temporary form. And then, just to ruin it, you think. You think about how long you've been out here. You think about how little you've slept. You think about how your body has adapted to discomfort like it was training for a contest no one wants to win. You think about how there's no bed in your life right now. Just a plank, a bucket, and a set of nightmares that rotate between drowning, starving, and watching a rat crawl into your boot and not crawl out. You think about home, whatever that means anymore, and then you stop thinking. You let it go, you look at the stars again. Let them fill your brain with nothing. This is the part of the night watch that makes sense. The stillness, the breathing ship beneath your boots, the sky above. You can almost pretend you're alone out here. Just you and the sea and whatever's out there in the dark. But of course you're not. Footsteps thud behind you. Soft, slow, deliberate. You tense, then glance over your shoulder. It's the cat. The ship's cat. No one really knows where she came from. Probably smuggled aboard for rat control. She doesn't have a name. Some call her Widow. Others call her Nellie or Ghost or just the cat. She's jet black, missing a bit of one ear, and walks like she owns the ship, which, arguably, she does. Tonight she hops onto the railing beside you, tail curling neatly around her paws, eyes narrowed against the wind. Evening, you say softly, because why not? She flicks one ear but doesn't otherwise respond. She's staring out at the sea, just like you, watching, listening, maybe judging. There's a fringe theory among seafarers that cats can see spirits, that they protect ships from things men can't detect. Bad omens, storm curses, drowned souls. You've never been especially superstitious, but on nights like this, with the stars above and the water whispering below, you start to wonder. The cat doesn't move for a long while, just sits there, calm, collected, unbothered. You envy her. She doesn't need a blanket, doesn't need to explain herself, doesn't itch or get shouted at. She just is. Eventually she hops down, saunters along the deck, and disappears behind a coil of rope. You stay where you are, leaning against the rail, eyes drifting back to the sky. The wind hums through the rigging now, low and steady like a lullaby played on an old string. For once, you're not tired. Not yet. The cold has numbed your feet, the silence has wrapped itself around your thoughts, and the stars have pulled you just far enough away from everything else. You can't sleep standing up, not like some of the others, but here, in this moment, you understand why some try. You close your eyes, just for a second, just to breathe. You're barely back below deck before she finds you again, the ship's cat brushing against your shin like she owns the place, which frankly she does. Every plank, every rope coil, every half-rotted sack of barley and leaky barrel of salted cod, she's mapped it all out. You're just passing through. She pauses at your feet, tail flicking with the same attitude a noblewoman might give a poorly trained servant. You offer her a nod. She does not acknowledge it, naturally. Back in your damp corner, Gerard's snoring like someone choking on a whistle. You step over him, carefully, and lower yourself to your familiar plank. It's wetter than it was before. You have no idea how. The water never sleeps, it just seeps. You lie back anyway, cloak over your shoulders, boots still on, because taking them off at this point feels like asking for a fungal incident. The cat hops up beside you. No invitation. Just makes herself comfortable, curling up against your ribs like you're a mildly useful heat source. You're not about to argue. She's warm at least. She smells like fish guts and sawdust, but so do you, so you figure it balances out. For a moment it's weirdly peaceful. Her purring vibrates against your side like a soft engine, steady and comforting. You feel your breathing slow to match the rhythm. You almost forget you're lying on damp wood next to a man who smells like pickled onions and abandoned dreams. The truth is, she's better company than most of the crew. She doesn't talk. She doesn't complain. She doesn't sing in her sleep or whisper prayers in a panic or wake up swinging at shadows. She just exists, curled in a tight ball of indifferent fluff, occasionally opening one yellow eye to check if something edible might be passing by. Ship's cats have always had a place in the strange hierarchy of life at sea. You'd think rats would dominate down here. There are enough of them, but somehow the cat keeps them in check, or at least terrifies them into silence. One swipe of her paw, one glint of those eyes, and the scurrying stops. She's the unspoken queen of the lower deck, feared by rats, tolerated by men, and worshipped by a few who've seen her do things that don't quite make sense. Alan once swore he saw her leap from the forecastle to the main mast in a single jump. Others say she disappears for days at a time, only to reappear in the hold without a speck of salt or dirt on her. No one's sure who feeds her, yet she never seems hungry, and she's never once been caught in a storm. Never soaked, never shivering, just always dry, always awake, always watching. You've started to think she's more than a pest hunter. Maybe a guardian, maybe a spy. Maybe just something old and stubborn that refused to die on land and hitched a ride to see what the sea had to offer. There are sailors, serious ones, hard men with scars and missing teeth, who will not sail without a cat on board. Not because of the rats, but because they believe cats keep the ship's soul balanced. A superstition, sure, but out here what isn't? There's even a strange fringe belief, shared in low whispers, mostly by older men with too many voyages behind them, that a cat on board can see the future, not in a crystal ball way, but in the way they act before a storm, the way they vanish before someone falls overboard, the way they stare sometimes into a corner of the ship no one else sees, and keep staring. You once saw her crouch at the base of the mast and hiss for no reason. That night the rigging snapped mid-squall. No one was injured, but no one forgot it either. Tonight she's still, quiet, no hissing, no creeping. Her ears are soft against her head. Her breathing is slow. That's a good sign. You shift under your cloak. Your side aches. Your hip is numb. You've been on this voyage long enough that you can feel individual knots in the wood pressing into your muscles. Your legs tingle from poor circulation. Your fingers, finally warming up, itch again as the lice make their nightly rounds. Still, you rest. The lantern flickers low. A soft clank from above tells you someone's moving on deck. Watch shift. Not yours. Thank the gods. Your feet ache too much to climb anything tonight. The cat shifts against your ribs, sighs, an actual sigh, and settles deeper. And just as you're dozing, that first sweet drift into pre-sleep, you feel her stiffen. She lifts her head, ears pricked. You follow her gaze to a dark corner of the hold. Nothing's there, just shadows and a half-open barrel, but she's watching it, unblinking, focused. You wait, one breath, two. She lets out a single, low growl, then curls back into her ball and closes her eyes. You don't ask questions, you don't look back. Whatever she saw, or thought she saw, you're better off not knowing. If she's decided it's not worth chasing, that's good enough for you. You pull your cloak tighter, turn your face away from the corner, and try not to think about it. The cat's warmth is fading. She's still there, but your side is cold again. Your breath makes a thin cloud in the air. You close your eyes. For once you don't dream, or if you do, you don't remember it. All you know is that when you wake, hours later, she's gone. And so is the chill. Just a faint warmth left in the wood, and a single black hair clinging to your cloak. By now you know every snore in the hold. You could map the crew by their nighttime noises, draw an entire diagram based on who grunts, who wheezes, who mutters in their sleep, and who breathes so softly you start to wonder if they've died sometime during the night. But tonight is something else entirely. You're lying there, half awake, wrapped in your sour-smelling cloak with one boot still on, and the other lost to the foot of your plank when it hits you. The snoring is in sync. It starts slowly. A low drone from one end of the hold. Then another joins it, slightly off at first, like a late addition to a choir. Then a third, a fourth. Soon, the whole space is vibrating with the sound of nasal breathing and guttural wheezing, rising and falling in perfect time. You don't move. You just lie there, listening. It's like a ship-shaped instrument, being played by the worst orchestra imaginable. Every man adds his own tone, Gerard with his uneven honk that skips a beat every few seconds, Alain's whistle that cuts through the rest like a bird in distress, and Thomas's deep, slow rumble that sounds like it's echoing up from his boots. Together, they've created something accidental and horrifyingly hypnotic. You can't sleep through it, of course. Not this. It's too unified, too rhythmic. The cadence is almost taunting. Every time you think it's about to end, someone else picks it back up. A soft sputter becomes a crescendo. A sharp inhale becomes a bass note. And worst of all, it's comforting. You find yourself breathing in time with it. Not on purpose. Your body just slips into rhythm with the living engine around you. It's the closest thing to harmony this crew has ever produced. A lumbering lullaby made of congestion, exhaustion, and the slow collapse of naval hygiene. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And yet, there's something almost tender about it. These men have worked all day, been soaked by spray, bruised by barrels, bitten by fleas, and now, here they are, sleeping like children in a nursery made of mildew and salted timber. The snoring is proof that, for now, they're alive, they're safe, and they're too tired to care about dignity. And so are you. You roll onto your side, pressing your ear to the planks. The ship's creaking becomes the percussion underneath the snore symphony. Somewhere far off, a wave slaps the hull. One of the rats scuttles by, little claws ticking like castanets. You think of music halls. You think of lullabies from when you were a child. A warm hand on your back. The rise and fall of someone's breath beside you. It all feels connected now, in some weird, impossible way. You open one eye and scan the room. Even in the dim lantern light you can see their faces, eyes shut, bodies curled or sprawled, heads resting on sacks, ropes, whatever they could claim. This moment won't last, of course. At any second the captain might shout, a storm might hit, someone might wake from a nightmare and lurch into the aisle swinging fists. But for now, they snore, and that's all. You almost laugh. Not loud enough to ruin the choir, just a soft breath of amusement. You've cursed these men. You've hated the way they stink, the way they fight over scraps, the way they never shut up when you need silence the most. But now you hear them like this, stripped of everything but fatigue, and you can't help but feel a strange sort of affection. The kind you don't speak about, the kind that stays buried deep in your ribs, where only your own exhaustion knows it exists. There's actually a historical note here, something that doesn't show up in logs or journals but lives in the margins, in the folklore and oral stories. Sailors believed that a ship's crew needed to be in tune to survive, not musically, not even socially, but physically. Their bodies had to move together, eat together, rest together, a rhythm, a shared beat. Some say it's why old ships had chants and songs for everything, pulling lines, hauling sails, even rowing. It wasn't just tradition, it was survival. Keep the crew in sync and the ship moves right. Let the rhythm break, and everything starts to fall apart. And maybe that's what this snoring is, a natural echo of that rhythm, not planned, not controlled, just the body's way of saying, we're still here, we're still in this together. There's even a fringe belief, something you heard Alain mumble once during a long watch, that the sea can hear it, that when a crew sleeps in rhythm, the sea listens and shows mercy. Maybe not every time, but sometimes. You don't believe that exactly, but you want to. You close your eyes. You try to match the snoring around you. You let it guide your breathing, your heartbeat, your thoughts. You stop fighting the sounds. You let them wash over you. And slowly, unbelievably, it starts to work. Your limbs soften. Your back eases against the planks. The pain doesn't vanish, but it fades to background noise. Your thoughts slow. The snoring doesn't annoy you anymore. It comforts you. It fills the dark space with proof of life, of warmth, of exhaustion earned. You drift. Not quite asleep, but close enough to forget where you are. The line between self and crew, between ship and sea, blurs just a little. You are part of the rhythm now, and it holds you like a tide. The nausea creeps in quietly, like a thought you try to ignore until it becomes the only thing in your skull. At first, it's just a low hum in your gut, a little twist as the ship rocks on its side. Nothing new, nothing worth noticing. But then the rocking hits a sharper tilt, and your stomach responds like you've swallowed a bag of wriggling eels. You open your eyes. The hold is still half dark, lit only by the flicker of a half-burned lantern hanging from a beam above. The snore symphony has broken up, some men still breathing like wheezy bellows, others stirring, stretching, or groaning as they rejoin the waking world. But for you, the only sound that matters now is the churn in your belly. You sit up slowly, and the world sways harder than you remember. The motion doesn't feel like the usual rhythm, the slow, sleepy rocking that becomes background noise after a while. This is different. It tilts, rolls, pauses just long enough to make your insides guess the wrong direction before shifting again. You take a breath. Bad move. The air is thick with sweat, salt, damp wood, and that sour, half-rotted smell of 100 boots and bodies that haven't seen dry earth in weeks. Normally it just sits in the back of your nose like an unpleasant memory. Today it punches you square in the gut. You press a hand to your stomach. Cold sweat forms instantly at your temples. Seasick. Again. You thought you were past this. Thought your body had adapted. There were a few miserable days at the start of the voyage, of course, when everything you ate made a reappearance, sometimes impressively fast. But then it settled. You got your sea legs. You were proud of that, honestly. A little badge of honour in this endless wet misery. But now you're back at square one. You lean forward, elbows on knees, trying to keep your head steady. One of the younger sailors walks past, blinking blearily, and gives you a look that says, "Rough night?" You don't answer. Your throat feels tight, like it's bracing for an impact. You force yourself to breathe slow, in through the nose, out through the mouth. That's what they say, right? You tried ginger once. Someone swore it helped. But all it did was make your vomit taste like spiced regret. You reach for your water skin. Take a sip. Another bad move. It sloshes in your gut like a wave in a barrel. You gag, hand over your mouth, and make a break for the corner of the hold you've now lovingly dubbed the pit. Not an official name, of course, but everyone knows what it means. You barely make it before your stomach revolts. There's no grace in it, no dignity. Just heaving, coughing, your ribs aching as your body purges whatever stale bread and stringy meat it tried to digest overnight. A rat scurries out of the shadows, offended. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve. It's already crusted with old salt and grime, so one more stain doesn't matter. You slump back against a beam and close your eyes, willing the sickness to pass. It doesn't. This is the kind of seasickness that comes in waves, no pun intended. It recedes just long enough to fool you, then crashes back with interest. And there's something particularly cruel about being this miserable while sleep-deprived. Your body doesn't know what it wants. Rest? Relief? A replacement stomach? You don't even bother going back to your plank. You stay slouched against the beam, legs stretched out, breath shallow. Someone coughs nearby. The ship gives another lurch, and you brace yourself instinctively. You're not alone. A few others are green around the edges, though most of them have learned how to hide it better. You spot Alain chewing something and muttering to himself. Some herb he insists helps, though he won't share. He says it's sacred. You think it might just be moss. You'd laugh if it wouldn't trigger another round of retching. Here's the thing most people don't realise about seasickness. It doesn't go away when you lie down. It doesn't vanish with a bucket or a prayer. Sometimes it lingers for days, sometimes weeks. And if you're particularly lucky, it can vanish entirely and return at the exact moment you need to function. Like now. In the middle of what was supposed to be your rest. The historical truth? Medieval sailors dealt with this constantly, even the experienced ones. The ships rolled more than modern vessels, with high, rounded bottoms and very little stabilization. During storms, they became tumbling barrels. During calm seas, they still moved unpredictably, pulled by current and wind alike. There's even a theory, unproven but persistent, that captains used to choose crew not based on skill, but on their stomachs. If he doesn't puke during boarding, he's hired. Probably not true, but it paints the right picture. And the fringe belief, Some thought seasickness was a punishment from the sea herself, a kind of test, that your body had to earn its place aboard. If the sea didn't like you, she'd twist your insides until you broke. Men whispered about it. Some even gave offerings, coins, bits of bread, even hair, thrown overboard when no one was watching, hoping for mercy. You haven't thrown anything over yet, but you're considering it. Maybe Gerard's sock. Eventually the nausea ebbs. Not fully, but enough for you to open your eyes again. You're pale, sweaty, miserable, but still breathing, still aboard. You pull yourself up, hand gripping the nearest rope for support. Your legs wobble, knees buckling slightly, but you manage to stumble back to your plank. Gerard somehow is still asleep. His mouth is open. You look at him with the purest loathing a man can summon at sea. You lie back down, carefully, on your side, eyes half closed. The ship rocks again, but now you're ready. You breathe with it, not against it. You ride the motion like a lazy dance, letting your gut float inside you like a loose knot. You tell yourself you'll never eat again, that bread is the enemy, that if anyone offers stew today you'll leap overboard. Then you burp, and against all odds it doesn't kill you. Progress. You're not sure who said the sea has a mind of her own, but they were definitely a sailor, and definitely someone who lost a few too many friends to things they couldn't explain. Maybe it was Alain, or the cook, who only speaks in curses and long stares. Or maybe you heard it your first week aboard, back when your stomach was still intact and your skin hadn't grown a crust of salt and sleep deprivation. Tonight the mind of the sea is restless. The wind has picked up again. Not a storm, yet, but something's building. You can feel it in the deck boards under your feet and in the way the sails above groan like a beast turning in its sleep. There's a tension in the air, the kind that tastes metallic and makes your teeth ache. The cat is nowhere to be seen, not a good sign. You settle back into your spot in the hold, cloak pulled tightly around your shoulders, but the calm is long gone. You know you won't be sleeping anytime soon, not with the ship creaking like it's about to spill secrets and the air thick with that strange pressure that always comes before something bad. So instead, you sit and listen. And after a while, you realize you're not the only one awake. Somewhere near the forebeam, two men are whispering. Their voices are low, not quite serious, not quite joking, riding that line between story and confession. You catch bits and pieces. She carved it right into the mast, said it keeps the storm off. Last ship that ignored the signs went down in half a night. You inch closer without making it obvious. Listening is half the job when you're off watch. That and trying not to fall into the sea or die of boredom. And tonight, with the hold half-shadowed and everyone tense, a good story is as valuable as food. It's Alain speaking, naturally. He's got a flair for the dramatic. He's hunched over a length of rope, pretending to be tying something, but really just entertaining the two younger crewmen sitting near him, their faces lit faintly by the lantern glow. You don't sleep through a cursed night, he's saying, his voice gravel soft. Not unless you've carved a mark. One of the lads raises an eyebrow. What kind of mark? Alain shrugs. Any kind'll do. Circle. Star. Name of someone you trust. Carve it into your beam, into the rail, into the back of your hand if you have to. You saying the sea can't touch you if you've got a doodle on your bunk? The boy chuckles, but it's nervous. I'm saying the sea respects a man who makes agreements. Alain's tone goes sharp. You don't bargain with the sea. She might bargain with you, while you're dreaming, or worse. That shuts them up for a second. Then the younger one, Jack maybe, leans forward and asks, You ever dream of her? The question hangs. You've heard that one before. It's not about the sea in general. It's about her, the woman in white, the one who stands at the bow during rough waters, the one who sings when the wind goes still, the one who walks into your dreams and asks you questions you don't know how to answer. You don't know if she's real, but you've heard her name whispered too many times not to wonder. Alain doesn't answer right away. Then he says, Once. The boys lean in. She had seaweed in her hair, he murmurs, and her eyes were the colour of anchor rust. Said I'd sleep forever if I kissed her. Woke up soaked in seawater and blood. My own nose, I think. Someone lets out a low whistle. You lie back on your plank again, eyes half closed now. The tale's taken root. It'll be passed along now, mutating, growing, until half the crew's carving circles into their bunks and sleeping with their knives under their pillows. It sounds like superstition. It is superstition. But you'll be honest. You carved your own mark weeks ago. It's just a notch, really. on the side of your plank, a little line with a cross through it. You made it during a stormy night when you couldn't sleep and the creaking of the ship sounded too much like a voice calling your name. You don't believe it does anything. Probably. Maybe. But you trace it with your finger sometimes. Like tonight. And there's a fringe belief tied to that. One that never makes it into ship logs or books about navigation. Just sailor lore passed from bunk to bunk. It says the sea doesn't want to drown you. Not really. What she wants is your fear, your attention, your respect. Sleep too soundly, dream too sweetly, and she might get jealous. Hence the marks, the songs, the whispered prayers, the little agreements you make silently, hoping the sea will pass you over tonight and take someone else. You'd never say it out loud, but every man down here thinks it. Let it be someone else. The tension grows as the ship rocks harder. A fresh groan rolls through the beam above your head, and a few of the men sit up. Alain's gone quiet now. No more stories. The hold has taken on that charged stillness again, like everything's holding its breath. You grip your cloak tighter, tracing your mark with your thumb. The cat still hasn't come back. Someone across the hold mutters a prayer. Not loudly, just enough. You hear St. Elmo's name again. He's the go-to, the patron of sailors, the one you call on when storms hit and the deck starts tilting at unnatural angles. You've mumbled his name once or twice yourself, more out of reflex than faith. But tonight, it feels heavier, more necessary. There's a debate among scholars, because of course there is, about whether these superstitions actually served a psychological function, or were just a result of the harsh conditions. But when you're here, lying awake in the dark with your back aching and your stomach still twitching from the last bout of seasickness, you don't care about academic theories. You care about whatever gets you through the night. And tonight, superstition is what's doing the heavy lifting. You close your eyes. Breathe in, slow and steady. The ship creaks again, the kind of sound that sends a chill up your spine, but nothing snaps, nothing leaks. Not yet. You whisper your own little ritual, half nonsense, half hope. Let the wind go where it wants. Let the sea sleep. Let the night pass through me. It's not a spell, not even a prayer, just something you say, every night now. You don't know if it works, but you're still here. There's a sound the ship makes at night that no one talks about. Not the shrieking crack of wood under pressure, or the deep groan of the mast shifting its old bones. Not the familiar whip of ropes against sails or the splash of waves slapping at the hull. This sound is quieter, subtle, almost musical. It's the lullaby from the hull. You're lying on your plank pressed close to the ship's ribs, the timber cool against your cheek when you finally start to hear it. Not just the noise, but the pattern. The way the ship speaks to itself in soft creaks and murmurs, like an old woman telling stories in her sleep. The boards shift with every roll of the water, and each movement comes with a sound. A stretch, a sigh, a low hum from deep in the belly of the vessel. It's not language exactly, but you could almost convince yourself it is, like the ship is remembering something, or humming a tune it learned from the sea long ago. You've been aboard long enough now to stop fearing the noises. At first, every crack made you flinch. Every groan felt like a warning. But now they're part of the soundtrack of survival. You've memorized the harmless sounds and the ones that mean trouble. A pop from the rigging overhead? Normal. A sudden sharp snap? Not normal. A pause in all sound, like the ship holding its breath. That's when your stomach drops. But tonight is different. The wind outside has calmed again. Not fully, never fully, but enough that the sails hang a little slack, and the motion of the waves is steady, rhythmic, predictable. And so, the ship sings. Not out loud, of course, but in the way her joints move, the way the timbers rise and fall like lungs, the way the entire hold creaks in harmony, as if the ship is rocking you to sleep, not the other way around. You press your palm flat against the floor beside your bed, fingers splayed. You can feel the vibration in the wood, soft and low, like the rumble of a cat's purr if the cat were made of oaken nails and was constantly trying to murder you in storms. It's oddly soothing. There's something deeply ancient in the rhythm. You can imagine sailors from 100 years ago, lying exactly where you are now, hands pressed to the same boards, hearing the same lullaby. Someone snores nearby, deep and regular. Another mutters in his sleep, the usual chorus. But even their sounds fade into the background as the lullaby gets into your bones. There's a fringe belief among sailors, one of the strange ones not openly spoken but passed quietly between bunks, that a ship's soul lives in the sound of her timbers, that when you sleep close enough, long enough, she starts to sing to you. Not everyone hears it, only those who've earned her trust, or maybe just those who are too exhausted to fight it. Alain naturally believes it completely. He says it's how old ships choose who survives. They test you first, wear you down, and then when you've broken enough times, they sing you to sleep. If you hear the song, it means the ship's accepted you. If you don't hear it, well, maybe you're just not listening hard enough, or maybe you don't belong here. You used to laugh at that. Now you're not so sure, because tonight, as your eyes begin to drift shut, the lullaby gets clearer. It's not words, just sound. A kind of long, low sigh through the boards, steady and endless, like the ocean exhaling. It weaves through the groans of the mast and the whisper of ropes shifting above. A melody made of weight and wood and weather. The ship isn't fighting the sea tonight. It's floating with it, breathing in rhythm, dreaming. And you, for once, feel like maybe you can dream too. Your body, for all its aches, begins to unwind. Your feet tingle from where the cold has finally given up and gone numb. Your hands are sore but relaxed. Your head rests against the damp plank like it was carved to fit your skull. And the itch, the lice, the crawling sensation beneath your shirt, still there, but less important. The lullaby is louder. There's even a point, brief, fleeting, where you stop thinking about the rats, the ghosts, the dreams of drowning. You don't worry about your next shift or whether the cook will try to pass off spoiled fish as breakfast again. You don't even care that your blanket smells like someone else's armpit. You just listen, and you breathe. And for the first time in too many nights, your body isn't flinching from rest. It's welcoming it. Scholars, of course, debate whether any of this has merit. They say sailors were simply sleep-deprived, that their brains learned to turn repetitive noises into comfort, that after weeks at sea, your mind needs a pattern to cling to, so it invents one in the sounds around you. They call it psychological adaptation. Maybe they're right. But as you lie here, your fingertips on the boards, your ear pressed close, it doesn't feel like invention. It feels like invitation. Like the ship, for once, is telling you, you can rest now. I've got this. It won't last. It never does. You'll be shaken awake in a few hours, called back to the deck. The wind will return, the sails will strain, and the peaceful rhythm will splinter back into chaos. But right now, the hull is singing and you are part of the song, and you sleep. The captain's quarters are quiet, as they always are when the rest of the ship is groaning, snoring, puking, or otherwise sounding like a choir of exhaustion. You're not usually up here, at least not for long, but you've been assigned to bring something to the door. A chart, rolled and tied. Nothing dramatic. But it gives you an excuse to peek into the one place on the ship where sleep might possibly be a little less miserable. You knock, no answer. You knock again, and after a long moment a voice grumbles, "Leave it." So you do, setting the scroll by the door, but you linger, just for a few seconds, because inside that door is the captain, and unlike the rest of the crew, he has a bed. A real one, or at least what passes for one at sea. You've caught glimpses. A narrow-framed bunk wedged against the back wall, sometimes with a wool blanket that doesn't look half-rotted. A pillow that seems suspiciously clean. Maybe even straw-stuffed cushions, luxury bordering on sin. No rats, probably. No feet in his face unless he invites them. No barrel of pickled fish stored underneath. No sleepwalking deckhands tripping over his knees in the night. But even so, you wouldn't trade places with him, because when the rest of you are snoring or trying to, or at least faking it under a damp cloak, he doesn't really sleep. He waits. You've seen him in the early hours, standing by the tiller like a statue, eyes red-rimmed, jaw set, hands gripping the rail so tightly the veins show. While you dream of food or beds or women with normal teeth, he's charting stars, counting wind shifts, worrying about cargo, wondering if this is the trip that finally goes wrong. Sleep for the captain comes in pieces, a half hour here, an hour there, always with one boot still on, always with one ear tuned for footsteps or shouts or, worse, silence. Because silence means something's coming. You head back below, footsteps light, and rejoin the rank and file. Gerard is snoring again. Of course he is. Thomas is playing his favourite nightly game. Is that my blanket or yours? A couple of men are mumbling in their sleep, but nothing violent yet. You slide back into your space. Your back hits the familiar plank. The warmth has mostly fled. but the shape of your body is still there. Indentations, friction polish spots, places where your ribs have practically worn grooves. You settle into it with a sigh. You wonder what it's like for the captain, lying in that private room, maybe with a lamp still burning, maybe with a map on his chest like a paper blanket. You imagine the sound is different up there, less breathing, less farting, less people. But maybe that's worse. Too quiet, too many thoughts. He can't fully trust anyone else on this ship. Not really. That's the curse of rank. Every man here would follow an order in a storm, sure, but sleep? Trust? That's another matter. So he watches, he listens, he lays on a nicer bed and dreams of less than you do. That's the trade. There's a fringe belief, old and mostly forgotten, that captains don't dream at sea, that the weight of command drowns it, that the sea doesn't let them. If they start to dream, they miss something. A gust, a shift, a sail out of place. So the sea takes their dreams and gives them nightmares instead. And so, while the rest of the crew may wake gasping from sleep, the captain often just lies there, eyes open in the dark, already aware of what's gone wrong. You're not sure if that's romantic or just depressing. You've only seen him truly tired once, middle of a gale. The crew had been working non-stop. The deck was chaos. Lines snapping, sails flapping like mad beasts, the waves breaking high enough to soak your eyebrows. And amid all that, the captain sat for a second, just 1 second, atop a barrel, elbows on knees, head hanging like his spine had given out. Not asleep, just drained, just human. Then he stood, shouted orders, steered into the wave, like sleep never mattered. Tonight you find yourself weirdly grateful that someone else is up there right now, awake, thinking, while you lie in your own damp pocket of misery. The ship shifts slightly, a soft lean to port, and you hear a faint creak from above. His footsteps, maybe. You don't envy him, but you respect the hell out of him. You remember what it felt like early in the voyage, when you were still green enough to be scared every time the hull made a new noise. You'd glance toward the captain, waiting for his reaction. If he looked calm, you tried to convince your bladder to follow suit. If he looked tense, you started writing your will in your head. Because out here, the captain's mood is the weather you don't see. If he's solid, the ship feels solid. If he wavers, everything else starts to shake. You tug your blanket tighter around your shoulders. It smells worse now. Somehow, like old sweat mixed with despair and a hint of vinegar. But it's yours, your little corner of rest. And you think again, what if he does sleep differently? Maybe not deeper, but smarter. Does he close his eyes and hear the wind shifting in the lines? Does he dream in maps and tide charts? Or does he just lie there, listening for the footsteps that mean trouble is coming? You think about offering to trade spots, just once, just for a night. Then you think about the look in his eyes after a long storm, and you decide to keep your plank, even with the smell, even with Gerard, even with the rats tap dancing on the rafters. You don't have to worry about mutiny, about hull integrity, about profit margins and navigation, and God forbid diplomacy. You just have to survive your watch, keep your food down, and not fall overboard. The sea has different rules for captains, that much is obvious. And maybe when this voyage is over and you finally stumble back onto solid land, you'll dream of waves and ropes and shouting. But the captain, maybe he'll finally sleep, real sleep, the kind you forget as soon as it's over. Or maybe he won't. Maybe he gave that up the moment he took the title. You pull your cloak over your head, block out the lantern's glow, and breathe in the damp, salty human stench of your floating dormitory. And for now, at least, you're glad it's him lying awake above you, not you. You're dreaming again. Not the usual kind. The slow, sticky hallucinations your brain cooks up when it's been pickled in seawater and half-starved of real sleep. No, this dream feels different. More real, more fluid. Like the sea has poured itself straight into your mind and made a home behind your eyes. You're standing on the deck. That part's familiar enough. The ropes creak, the sails shudder, the salt bites at your skin. But everything is wrong, too smooth, too still. The ship isn't moving. The sea is flat, glassy, endless. Not calm, just stuck. No wind, no current. The sails hang limp like wet laundry. The whole world feels like it's holding its breath. You look around, expecting to see the crew, but there's no one. No footsteps, no grumbling voices, no laughter or coughs or muttered swears, just you and the sound. It starts faint, so quiet you could mistake it for wind, but there is no wind, just that low hum, like singing, but not words, not language. It vibrates through the deck, into your boots, up through your ribs. You step forward, but the wood beneath you feels soft, too soft. Like the ship isn't wood at all, but some kind of skin, something pulsing gently underfoot. You press your palm against the rail. It's warm. The song grows louder. You move to the bow, pulled by the sound, and there she is. Not the cat, not a sailor. Her. She's standing at the edge of the ship, facing away, hair moving as though there is wind now, long, black, wet. Not dripping, not soaking, just part of the air, like smoke in a shape. You want to speak. Ask who she is. Ask what she wants. But your throat is closed. Your mouth won't open. And somehow, you know, it wouldn't matter. She turns slowly. Her face is blurred. Not shadowed, not hidden, just wrong. Like your eyes can't hold it. Like every time you blink, she has a new face, a new expression. None of them quite human. Not monstrous. Just other. Her eyes settle on you, grey empty. And suddenly the sea moves. The ship jolts, hard, like it's been dropped onto the surface. You stumble. She doesn't. The sea begins to boil around you, not hot, but violent, frothing like something beneath it is rising. She takes a step toward you. Her feet don't make sound. Another step, and another. You can't move. Your body is heavy, nailed in place. You want to run, want to scream, but you're a passenger in your own limbs now. Her mouth opens. The song gets louder. It pours into your ears, pressing behind your eyes, filling your head with something that feels like pressure and salt and loss. Then, a splash, a real one. You bolt upright. The dream shatters like glass. Your breath comes hard, sharp. Your shirt is soaked in sweat, clinging like a second skin. Your heart is hammering in your throat. You look around, panicked. The hold is real again. You're on your plank. The lantern still burns, though low. Someone groans in their sleep. Someone coughs. The familiar stench of unwashed bodies hits your nose, and you nearly cry with relief. But something's wrong. There's water on your face. You reach up, touch your cheek. It's not sweat, it's seawater, cold, fresh. Like a wave just kissed your skin. You look toward the corner of the hold. Nothing. Just crates, barrels, rope. No leak, no dripping. Your stomach coils. The dream is still with you. You can feel it behind your eyes, clinging like fog. That woman, her eyes, her voice, the way the sea boiled, the way the ship listened to her. You've heard stories, of course. All sailors have. Stories of sea spirits, drowned women who haunt the water, creatures that appear in dreams when storms are near, or when death is coming, or when the ship's forgotten its place in the order of things. Some call her the Grey Widow, others the Drowned Bride. The French sailors have a name for her, La Dormeuse, the Sleeper. She comes not to wake you, but to drag you down into sleep you don't wake from. There's a fringe theory that she's the ocean's memory, that every sailor lost at sea becomes part of her body, that she walks on calm nights, just before the storm, looking for those whose minds are already halfway sunk. You swing your legs off the plank, sit up and press your feet to the cold, damp wood. You're awake now. You know that. But your hands are still trembling. The ship creaks beneath you, not in its usual gentle rhythm, but faster now, tense, like it's bracing. Above you hear movement, bootsteps, then a shout, muffled but urgent. Something's coming. A storm or something worse. You pull on your cloak, still soaked from days of wear. Your boots are stiff. You curse under your breath, but it doesn't help. Nothing does. You glance back at your sleeping crewmates. Gerard, oblivious. Thomas, twitching. Alain, awake now, sitting upright in the dark, staring straight ahead like he's seen her too. Your eyes meet. He doesn't say anything, he just nods. And that, more than anything, makes you shiver. You stand. The lullaby from the hull is gone now. All that's left is the creak of tension, and the rising wind. The wind hits hard before you reach the ladder, slamming down through the open hatch like it knows you are thinking of peace, and came to personally correct you. It smells sharp, charged, thick with the kind of salt that doesn't just cling to your skin but carves its way in. You look up, squinting at the swinging glow above, and catch the tail end of a shouted command, something about reefing sails, and then more footsteps thunder past, boots striking in staggered, panicked rhythm. You climb fast. Your knees hate you for it, and your shoulders scream with every pull, but you're up and out before your brain can talk you out of it. The deck greets you like a slap to the face. The ship is already tilting into the wind. Not wildly, not yet, but you can feel it in the way the boards rise and fall beneath your feet with new impatience. There's no real rain, just mist, cold and furious, swirling off black waves that are beginning to roll like something is waking up underneath them. The sails are half up, strained and groaning, and the rigging creaks like it's trying to tear itself apart. You stumble toward your post, boots slipping on slick wood. Your hands grab for rope instinctively, more muscle memory than decision, and a second later, you're hauling without thinking. One of the older deckhands barks something at you. Maybe praise, maybe insult, hard to tell in this wind. This storm doesn't roar in like the last one. It builds, slow, deliberate, as if it's testing the ship, inching up its violence degree by degree, letting you feel every stage of your own rising dread. The waves aren't huge yet, but they're stacking with a pattern that says soon. Each one taller than the last, each one throwing the ship's weight around a little more. You hear the captain shouting across the deck, voice slicing clean through the wind. He's not panicked, not yet, but he's serious. You catch the way he's moving, leaning into the gusts, eyes scanning the sky like he's reading a language only he can understand. You glance upward. No moon, no stars, just clouds, thick and fast and low. The kind that eat light and don't give anything back. The air tastes electric, and your dream comes back all at once. Not just as memory, but feeling. That woman, her song, her eyes. You rub your arms even though the cold doesn't explain this kind of shiver. You look around. Alain's on the main line, face grim. He looks up just once and gives you another one of those nods. Not friendly, not comforting, just confirming. You saw her too. He doesn't need to say it. He knows. There's an old belief, you heard it whispered one night while scrubbing the deck, half asleep and half frozen, that if more than one sailor sees the drowned woman in a dream, it means the ship has been marked. Not doomed exactly, just watched, noticed, and that maybe, just maybe, she'll come collect someone. Not everyone, just the one she's chosen. You don't want to think about that. You work, haul, shift, brace. Your fingers burn as you grip a line pulled too tight, and a sudden gust nearly knocks you flat. You grunt, dig your heels in, and plant your weight. Hold that line or we all go swimming, someone shouts. You don't recognize the voice, but the message lands. The sea is rising now. The ship's beginning to pitch harder, its bow lifting and slamming like a living thing trying to break free of whatever's pulling it. Every wave feels a little more deliberate, like it's aiming. Then, out of the corner of your eye, you see her again, just for a second. At the very edge of the ship, past the starboard rail where the waves meet the sky, there's a shape, white, leaning just a little forward, not moving, not screaming, just there, then gone. You freeze, not because you believe it, but because you do. You're not the only one. You see another sailor stop mid-step, stare into the mist, then shake his head violently and go back to work. Everyone's pretending they didn't see anything. That's how you know something's actually wrong. Because sailors will lie to themselves to stay sane. They'll lie straight through a lightning strike if it keeps the wind in the right direction. And tonight, no one wants to admit what they just saw. You grab a bucket and start bailing out the low deck, which is already collecting spray from the rising waves. You scoop, dump, scoop again. The water sloshes around your boots, icy and insistent. The lightning comes soon after. Thin, pale streaks that branch like veins across the sky, flashing behind the sails and turning the rigging into a silhouette of bones. You brace yourself for thunder, but it never comes. Just more silence, thick and waiting. The storm is not normal. You can feel it now. The sea isn't angry. It's curious, like it's circling you, testing the hull, measuring your fear. Another bolt flashes. You look toward the helm. The captain is standing there, one hand on the wheel, the other raised to his brow, peering into the storm. He hasn't moved. He's watching the horizon, watching for something you can't see, and for the first time he looks unsure. The hold is probably chaos by now, men tumbling, barrels rolling, curses flying. But up here, no one has time to complain. Every man is just hanging on. Rope, rail, instinct. Your muscles are screaming. Your lungs burn with cold air, but your mind is the worst part, because it keeps replaying that dream. The woman, her voice, her promise. You remember her mouth forming words without sound. You remember the way your body wanted to step forward, even as your brain begged you not to. You look to Alain again. He's tying a knot that doesn't need tying. His eyes flick to the edge of the ship, then back to you. He doesn't smile, doesn't speak, just works faster. And suddenly, you understand the worst part of it all. You don't have to drown to be lost at sea. You just have to give in. The storm is only beginning. The ship is holding, for now. But something beneath the storm is watching, waiting, listening for someone to stop resisting and take that one step forward. The storm hits its stride like a drunk remembering he owes someone a fight. Wind screams through the rigging now, screams, not whistles. The kind of sound that gets under your skin and unravels you from the inside. You've heard wind before, of course, but this is different. This wind sounds personal, like it knows your name, like it's trying to claw it out of the air just to spit it into the sea. The ship is lurching like it's drunk too, staggering sideways as it rides up a steep wave and then crashes down again with a spine-rattling thud that sends you sprawling onto the slick deck. You barely manage to hold onto the rope in your hand. You bite your tongue on the way down and taste blood. Doesn't matter, can't stop. You haul yourself upright, feet wide, knees bent, eyes half shut against the spray. You're soaked through, like everyone else. There's no such thing as staying dry in this kind of madness. Your cloak clings to you like seaweed, heavy with brine, tugging at your limbs every time you move. The sky has gone a full shade darker now. It's not black, it's blue-black, deep and unnatural, like ink spilled across the clouds. The lightning is coming more often now, so bright it burns your eyes when you forget to look away. And still, no thunder. That's the worst part. You expect the boom. You brace for it. You flinch every time the sky cracks open. But it never comes. Just flash after flash, silent and sharp, like the sea is taking photos of your last moments and doesn't want the shutter noise to ruin the mood. The captain barks more orders. You can't hear them anymore. You don't need to. At this point, you're working on pure instinct. Grip, brace, pull, tie. Every movement is survival. There's no room for thinking. Thinking gets people killed. Someone near the bow slips and vanishes over the edge. You see it happen. 1 second he's there, crawling across the deck. The next, gone. No scream. Just a splash swallowed by the storm. You don't even have time to react. The ship jerks again, and you slam back against the mast, the wind forcing itself into your ears like 1,000 knives. Your knuckles tear against the rigging as you tighten the knot that holds the lower sail. Your fingers are trembling. Cold? Fear? You're not sure. Probably both. It's hard to tell anymore where your body ends and the storm begins. Around you, the crew moves like shadows. Figures in cloaks and loose tunics soaked to the bone. Faces pale, hair whipping around like seagrass. No one speaks unless they have to. Everyone's eyes are wide now, darting toward the rail, because she's out there again. You see her every few flashes. Not on the ship this time. In the waves, tall, pale, standing upright where no one should be, where nothing should be, her white dress trailing into foam, her arms outstretched, not waving, not beckoning, just open, like she's offering something, like she's inviting. And behind her the sea surges. You force yourself to look away. You don't want to, but you have to. You know what happens when sailors stare too long. That story Alan told, that wasn't fiction. That was a warning. And if the look on his face right now is any sign, he's seeing her too, and he's terrified. You scramble back toward the middle of the deck, ducking under the boom as it swings overhead, missing your skull by inches. You land hard on your knees beside the main hatch and brace yourself. A massive wave breaks across the deck, sweeping 2 men off their feet. You throw out an arm blindly and catch one by the collar. His weight yanks your shoulder nearly out of its socket, but you hold. He gasps, clinging to your arm like it's the last rope in the world. Together you crawl back to the mast. He doesn't say thank you. You don't ask for one. Nobody talks now, because the ship is groaning. Not creaking, groaning. Long and low like something alive in pain. The wood beneath your feet is soaked, warped, strained past its limit. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, that awful shift in the structure, like the ship is deciding whether it's worth keeping itself together anymore. You slap a hand against the mast and whisper something. Not a prayer, just words. Not yet. Because you need this ship to hold. Not for glory, not for coin, not even for home, just to survive the night. There's a theory, one of the oddball scholarly ones, that old ships responded to their crew. That enough hands on the wheel, enough men working in sync could convince a ship to hold together through the impossible. No magic, just willpower, muscle memory, desperation. The power of belief when belief is the only thing between you and the deep. You don't know if it's true, but right now, you choose to believe it. Because if you don't, the next wave will kill you. You climb to your feet again, stumbling toward the mainstay, eyes locked on the line that's gone half loose. If it snaps, the sail will whip free and take someone's head off. You lurch forward, grip it, tighten. Your hands are raw now, the skin is gone from 2 knuckles, the salt stings like fire, but you tie it. You hold, you brace. Another flash, she's closer. Not in the waves anymore. On the rail, right side, midship, just watching. The wind hits hard, shoving you sideways. You catch the rail with your elbow, pain sparking up to your shoulder. You glance again, she's gone, and suddenly it's quiet. The wind is still blowing, the sails still strain. But for one terrible moment, everything feels muted. The sea flattens, not entirely, but enough that the motion is wrong. It doesn't roll anymore. It tilts, waits. Then, from the depths, a sound rises. It's not thunder, but it's not wood breaking. It's singing, soft echoing. The same song from your dream. You close your eyes, just for a second, not to sleep, to block it out. You press your palms to your ears and whisper your mark word again. Let the wind go. Let the sea sleep. You don't open your eyes until the wind slaps you again. When you do, she's gone, and the storm, real storm, returns. Fury, rain, wind, noise. But that's okay. You can fight a storm. You can't fight the sea when it starts choosing. You don't remember when the storm began to end. Not really. It doesn't stop with ceremony. No trumpet of calm or sunshine cracking through clouds, like a stage light saying, "We're done now." Number. It's more like a slow retreat, a fade out. The tantrum's over, the furniture is broken, but no one's ready to look each other in the eye yet. The waves start rolling instead of slamming. The wind, still biting, backs off just a little, enough for you to stand without hunching like a wet rat. Your ears are ringing from the constant noise, but now there's space in the air again. You can hear your own breath, feel your fingers, though they ache like they've been individually interrogated by a hammer. The ship floats like a corpse, motionless for a moment, suspended between storm and silence. You're crouched beside a coil of rope near the mainmast, boots filled with cold water, cloak hanging heavy around your shoulders like the world's worst blanket. You haven't moved in minutes, maybe hours. Time has gone strange. Your body is done fighting. You're not standing because you're strong. You're crouching because you're still here, and that's the closest thing to victory right now. Someone coughs behind you. A voice rasps, "Is it over?" You don't answer. Not because you're being dramatic, just because you don't know. You look up, the sky's a mess. Grey piled on grey, streaks of angry silver, with gaps just beginning to show where the storm has shredded itself. The horizon is visible again, jagged lines where waves crash lazily now, no longer angry, just spent. The kind of waves that come after a fight and don't really know what to do with themselves. The captain stands at the helm, soaked, statue still. His beard drips seawater. His eyes scan the horizon like it personally offended him. You wonder if he slept at all last night. Probably not. He looks like a man who lost a piece of himself out there. You wonder how many times that's happened. "Check the lines," someone yells, voice cracking from overuse. "Where's the cat?" another asks. You blink. That is a good question. You scan the deck. No sign, which is odd. She always appears after storms. Always. You've seen her more than once padding calmly across the soaked boards after the worst of it, like she'd been napping in a dry spot while you were all fighting for your lives. That's part of the mythos. She shows up, the ship's safe, and everyone gets to exhale. But not this time. The line of superstition unspools fast in your brain. The cat didn't come back. The sea marked us. She chose someone. You don't like where that thought goes. You pull yourself to your feet slowly. Every joint protests. Your legs are stiff and your hands are raw, blistered from rope and salt. You move like an old man, like someone who survived something. which you suppose is exactly what you are now. Around you, the crew starts checking damage. A sail's torn. 2 spars are cracked. A barrel of flour exploded down in the hold, which will no doubt lead to weevil soup for a week. One of the younger sailors, Jack, has a dislocated shoulder. Someone else has a black eye and doesn't remember where it came from. Thomas has a gash on his forehead and is asking where his boots went. No one knows. But no one else is dead. At least not that you can tell. You head down below deck to check your berth, half expecting to find water up to your ankles, or worse, rats on parade with bits of spoiled biscuit. But it's not that bad. Just wet. Always wet. You push aside a few coils of rope and find your plank, your cloak, your mark scratched into the side, still there. You run your thumb over it. It feels stronger now, as if the storm sharpened it. You sit, carefully. Your knees click like rusty hinges. The hold smells like wet cloth and old smoke, and something else. Faint, metallic, unsettling. You follow your nose toward the corner near the barrels. You stop. You see the cat, or what's left of her. She's curled in a strange position, too still. No breath, no twitch of tail. Her body is dry somehow, bone dry like she'd been sucked clean of sea. Her eyes are open, staring. Her fur is flat, her mouth just slightly open like she was about to hiss. You don't touch her, you back away, slowly, respectfully. Somewhere, deep in the cultural junk drawer of sailor logic, there's a hard rule. You do not touch the dead cat. You return to your plank, sit again, and this time you don't trace your mark. You add to it just one little line, a crossbeam. No reason, just a feeling. The others don't talk about her, not out loud, but word spreads fast in close quarters. You can feel it in the shift of the air. Everyone knows. Everyone feels it. The cat's gone. The ship survived. But the sea took something. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was one of you and you just haven't figured out what part yet. There's a fringe tale, passed in hushed tones around barrel fires and behind stacked crates, about the cat's purpose on a ship. Not to hunt rats. Not really, but to carry the weight. She's a lightning rod for curses, a charm with a heartbeat. If she dies, she takes something with her. A name, a fate, a storm that would have been worse. Or maybe that's just a bedtime story for sailors who don't want to admit they're always one gust away from drowning. You don't believe in fate, but you do believe in her, and you believe in what this ship feels like right now. Heavy, not from water, not from storm damage, from memory, the kind that lingers. You lie down, finally, not to sleep but to rest. The lullaby from the hull doesn't come tonight. It's quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like someone listening. You close your eyes, just for a second, and when you do, you see her again, standing beside the dead cat, smiling. You don't wake so much as surface, like something submerged just long enough to forget it was ever meant to breathe. Your eyes crack open in the dimness of the hold, the lantern swinging above you on its usual lazy arc. The ship creaks under your ribs, familiar, damp, still floating, which at this point is about all you ask for in a morning. Or maybe it's not morning. It's hard to tell. Below deck, time is more of a suggestion than a reality. No sunrise here, no birdsong or warm light filtering through windows, just wet wood, sore joints, and the perpetual smell of half-dried mildew and regret. You sit up slowly. Your body protests like it's still holding a grudge from last night. Your hands are stiff. Your back is one tight knot from shoulder to hip. Your ankle's swollen from the way you twisted it bracing during the storm, and your tongue tastes like you've been chewing rope and iron. Gerard is snoring again. Still. Forever. You don't even check to see if he's alive anymore. You just assume the breathing will continue. And if it stops, well, fewer smells in the hold. You look to the corner. The cat is gone. No body. No trace. Just a slight smudge in the dirt where she lay, as if she'd never been there at all. You blink, confused. Part of you wonders if your memory is slipping, if last night was another dream. But no. You remember the way she looked. Too still. Eyes open. Mouth parted like she had one last thing to say. The image burned itself into your brain. And now she's gone. You pull on your boots, stiff with salt and time, and make your way up to the deck, your legs feeling about as stable as a chair with one too many legs snapped off. The sunlight is brutal after so long in the dark. Not warm, not friendly, just bright. like the sky is suspicious of your existence and is trying to examine you under a magnifying glass. But the sea is calm now, still, glass-like almost. The sails are full but not straining. The crew moves with that strange hollow quiet that always follows a big storm. No shouting, no bickering, just soft voices, hands tightening knots, eyes scanning lines and masts for signs of damage. You catch the cook muttering to himself while stirring a pot of something that smells like boiled sawdust. It's probably the best meal you'll have all week. You find Alain at the port rail looking out over the water, his fingers tracing something on the wood. You glance down and see a small mark carved there. Nothing obvious, just a small crescent, almost like a smile. He sees you, nods, doesn't speak. Neither do you. Some things don't need commentary. The captain is at the helm again, of course. He looks different now, not tired. He always looks tired, but quieter. There's something in the way his shoulders slump, something in the way he looks at the horizon like it owes him an apology. You wonder what he saw last night, if he saw her too, if she whispered something to him, or if he simply stood there, hands on the wheel, steering through a storm that didn't follow the usual rules. He doesn't speak to you, but when your eyes meet there's a flicker of shared understanding. He saw something. Maybe not the same thing, but something. And that's enough. You look out over the sea. It's too calm. You've heard about this kind of calm before, the dead calm, a sailor's nightmare, not because of danger, but because of what it implies. No wind, no current, no movement, just stillness so perfect it begins to feel hostile. You've seen it in men's eyes. Give them a storm and they'll fight. Give them nothing and they start to unravel. There's a theory, a weird debated one, that the dead calm isn't natural, that it's not just weather, it's the sea resting, like a predator after a meal, licking its wounds, licking its lips. You believe it now. You spend the day quietly, helping patch a line, mopping the worst of the water from the lower deck, accepting a bowl of whatever horror the cook created and eating it without complaint. Even Gerard doesn't say much. The ship is quieter now, like everyone is too aware of how loud they were before. You wonder if anyone else noticed the cat's disappearance. You don't ask. By nightfall, the calm still hasn't broken. The wind picks up a little, but just enough to keep the sails filled. It's the kind of wind that whispers through the lines and makes everything feel like a lullaby again. But after what you've seen, you're not sure you trust lullabies anymore. Below deck, you return to your plank, same spot, same cloak. The mark is still there, carved deeper now, more certain. You settle in slowly, and for the first time in what feels like forever, the hitch is gone. No lice, no wriggling little reminders of filth and proximity. The wood beneath you feels warm, just slightly. You almost fall asleep like that, just resting, blinking slowly in the dark when you hear it. A single sound, a purr, quiet, low, steady. You freeze. Your eyes scan the hold. Nothing. You sit up, listening, but it's gone. Maybe it was never there. Maybe it's just memory now. Phantom sound. Your ear's playing tricks. Or maybe she's not gone after all, or maybe she's just moved. One mark traded for another. One weight lifted, one price paid. You lie back down, pull the cloak tight, close your eyes. The ship creaks gently beneath you, familiar again. And for the first time in weeks you sleep. Really sleep. No dreams, just breathing. Just the hush of calm, just the sea for once keeping her distance.